Senate will come back to order. Standing committee reports.
February 24, 2022. Mr. President, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 79, Prohibition on Private Funds for Conducting Elections, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Guru, Hicks, Kinski, Perkins, and Steinmetz. Senator Perkins, Chairman. February 23, 2022, Mr. President, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 14, Telecommunicator Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Furphy, Landon, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Landon, Chairman. February 23, 2022, Mr. President, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 17, Automated Transport of Cargo or Goods, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Furphy, Landon, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Landon, Chairman. February 23, 2022, Mr. President, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 22, Utility Trailers, Permanent Registration, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Furphy, Landon, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Landon, Chairman. February 23, 2022, Mr. President, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 52, Special License Plates, Organ Donations, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Furphy, Landon, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Landon, Chairman. February 24, 2022, Mr. President, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 111, Wyoming Financial Transparency Act, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Case, Driscoll, Nethercott, and Scott. Senator Scott, Acting Chairman. February 24, 2022, Mr. President, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom was referred Senate File 113, Property Tax Exemption, Organizations Funded by the WCDA, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Driscoll, Nethercott, and Scott. No, Senator Case. Senator Scott, Acting Chairman. February 24, 2022, Mr. President, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 106, Wyoming Stable Token Act, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Cooper, Rothfuss, and Wasserberger. Excused, Senator Beitman. Senator Anderson, Chairman. February 24, 2022, Mr. President, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 50, Government Waste, Fraud, Abuse, and Whistleblower Protection, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, Case, Driscoll, Nethercott, and Scott. Senator Scott, Acting Chairman.
Senator Perkins. Well, we'll come back to Senator Salazar. Sorry about that. We'll Senator Perkins, and then we'll be back to you. Go ahead, Senator.
Are we at a point where we can do a little business?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side, I move for immediate reconsideration of Senate File 102, Second Amendment Protection Act, and ask the body to vote aye.
Okay, this is on reconsideration. Okay, we got to wait just a moment. Got another technical problem. Got some gremlins this year, don't we? While we're waiting, I think we can sneak in. We're bringing the computer back up. Senator Salazar, would you take privilege now?
Thank you, Mr. President. Point of privilege, if I may.
Please do.
So honorable members, on the gallery here, we have the 2022 camo at the Capitol class, which is hunters and anglers from throughout the state, from your district and mine, and an extraordinary group of men and women, and I would ask that you welcome them to the Capitol.
Well, some remembered their camo, so next time, bring it all. Okay, thank you. Welcome to Cheyenne. Welcome to Capitol, folks. All right. Stand at ease for just a moment. Oh, Senator Hutchins, you got something for us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a quick privilege of the floor. This was brought to my attention during lunchtime, so I'm going to read this to you. In your mailboxes, in your mailboxes, you'll find one of these and some brochures and information about the Job Corps centers. There are 123 in the United States. One of them is a project here in Wyoming. Job Corps is a voluntary program that prepares young people 16 to 24 with education and hands-on career training for entry-level positions that lead to careers in today's job market. The mission is twofold: train skilled workforce and help youth break a cycle of poverty. Here is the information right here, and a contact information is on that for the Wyoming facility located just outside Riverton. There are openings now, and while it is open nationwide, we, of course, want to serve our Wyoming families. This facility is primary construction trade. So these are in your box. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, Senator Biteman, we're still getting the computer up, so go ahead.
I'll kill some time for you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
President. Privilege of the floor,
Please
please.
do.
Ladies and gentlemen, up in the gallery above our good esteemed president looks like we have Ranchester and Dayton here today. If everybody would please stand up. In Ranchester, we have Randy Sundquist, Mayor Peter Clark, Councilwoman Jessica Weaver, and Councilman Jeff Barron. And then from Dayton, we have Mayor, and who else from Dayton up there? Okay, well, welcome everybody from Dayton and Ranchester, is the best part of the state. Thank you very much.
Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. President. Privilege of the floor. Thank you, Mr. President. While I know Manchester and Dayton are two of our finer cities in the 99 cities and towns that we have in this great state, you know, in our area, we got one that we like a lot too. And then we got a couple of representatives here. We've got City Manager Larry Pardee and Councilman Jonathan Schechter from my favorite town, Jackson, Wyoming. Give them a big welcome.
Welcome to the Senate. Senator Boner, you have an opportunity too. So go ahead, sir.
Hey, thank you, Mr. President. Just sitting behind you, we have a citizen of Douglas who's joined us here today. Rhonda Deltz is a longtime educator, recently retired, been a long-term member of the community, and definitely an asset to us in Converse County, as is her whole family. So let's go ahead and welcome her to the Senate.
Senator Kinski.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor, if I may. Yesterday, I introduced to you Buffalo Mayor Shane Schrader. He's joined today by Buffalo City Councilman Scott Madsen, Sheridan City Administrator Stu McCrae, and the person who actually runs the city of Sheridan, Bev Leichman.
Welcome to the Senate. There's always those people behind the scenes that just kind of run things well. Okay. We're going to have to hold up on that reconsideration. Let's go ahead then and move back into, where's our majority floor leader? There we go. The chairman of appropriations is now the majority floor leader for the time being.
Time for general file, time to take my cue.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate resolve itself back into committee of the whole for the purpose of bills on general file.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. No? Affy, you have to declare conflict. We have some unfinished work for you here.
Alrighty.
Madam Chairman? Madam Chairman?
Committee of the Whole will come to order. Senator Perkins, I'll turn off some mics back there for you. First bill for our consideration is Senate File 92. Will the reading clerk please read in the Senate file?
Senate File 92, driver's license or ID card renewal or extension exception, sponsored by Senator Landon, an act relating to motor vehicles. It was referred to Committee Number 8, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Furphy, Landon, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Landon, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Senator Landon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a due pass recommendation on Senate File 92. There is a standing committee amendment. Madam Chairman, if I could have that read in at this time.
Senate
Yes.
File 92, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 1 above line 1, in.
Senator Landon.
Madam Chairman, I would move that amendment, and I'll get to it in just a moment. Fellow Senators, this is the driver's license bill that we discussed upon introduction. What this does, it goes into the Motor Vehicle Licensing Division, authorizing the Department of Transportation to renew or defer the expiration of a driver's license for a civil servant. We already do that, Madam Chairman, for our military, and all this bill does is provide that same privilege, making it easier for a civil servant who might be stationed overseas to be able to renew a driver's license. That language exists over on page 2. And if you notice, we go into 31.8.103 in the original version of the bill, and that is identification cards. After some testimony and a quick visit around the fireplace, the Transportation Committee felt like it was not necessary to include identification cards in this bill. So that's what the Standing Committee Amendment does. It strips the rest of that language out. The only thing we're dealing with now is the driver's license, and those are conforming amendments at the top of the page, and then we get into striking the language at the end of the bill. So be happy to answer any questions. This just takes care of our civil servants who might serve overseas for us. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 92, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The amendment's passed. We're back on the bill. Senator Landon.
Madam Chairman, that's a quick description. I would call for the question unless there are any questions.
Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Landon's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 92, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Senate File 92 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 62. Will the reading clerk please read that in?
Senate File 62, Civics Transparency Act, sponsored by Senator Driscoll, an act relating to K-12 public education. It was referred to Committee Number 4, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Beitman, Ellis, Salazar, and Scott. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Scott, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. Senator Scott, what is your pleasure?
Madam Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise and report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 62 do pass. There was a standing committee amendment. I ask it be read in.
Senate File 62, Standing Committee Amendments Number 1, page 1, line 3, after.
Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, I move adoption of the standing committee amendment, and if it's all right with the sponsor, I'll explain the standing committee amendment at this time. Madam Chairman, the standing committee amendment did two things. One, there was a set of provisions at the back of the bill on instruction in state and federal Constitution and what we ought to do there on issues relating to this. And the committee decided to simplify this bill to just a bill on on the transparency issue, so parents could see principally, so parents could see what their children were being taught. And so we took out that back section. So that's part of the standing committee amendment, and I recommend it to you because it does focus the bill. And the second thing we did was put a delayed effective date on from 2022 to 2023. And we did that because we were hearing from a number of the educators and the organizations representing them objecting to some of the transparency items as being unusually burdensome. And we were unable, in the time available in a budget session, to deal with all those objections and find out which ones were valid and which ones weren't, and do something about the ones that were valid. And we felt that we would have much better response if we passed the bill with a delayed effective date and then came back, Madam Chairman, in the interim and talked about the specifics. And we think we'll get better cooperation if they know that it's going to go into effect. And let's make it so that everybody can live with it and it's not an undue burden, which I don't think it will be. But that's what the second thing we did. So I urge adoption of standing committee amendment.
Discussion on
Madam
this,
Chairman, be happy to answer any questions.
discussion on the standing committee. Seeing none, all those in favor of Senator Scott's motion to adopt standing committee amendment number 1 to Senate File 62, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We're back on the bill. Senator Scott?
Madam Chairman, I yield to Senator Driscoll, sponsor of the bill, to explain.
Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So with great pride, I bring to you Civics Transparency Act, and the amendment just cleaned it up. It's really a clean, concise bill now. And what this bill's about is absolutely what the title says. It is about transparency in parents, taxpayers, and citizens to be able to see materials that our kids are being taught with and who's teaching them. And so I'll walk you through the bill. It's kind of interesting. Page 1's publication, and we've moved the effective date on it a year out, which gives them another year to get ready to do it. On page 2, Romanet I, line 5, list of the learning material and activities used for student instruction by school district preceding year, organized a minimum by grade and subject area. Policies or procedures guiding approval of use of materials and activities for student instruction by local school board, school district administration, leadership, or teachers. And it was testified in committee. Pretty much that's all kind of happening now, other than the direct materials. They went through and testified about it. We had the education groups come, and so we did it. And in order to comply, it says a school district may post and update the list of materials activity on an ongoing basis over the course of a school year, provided the complete list is posted not later than July 1. So they don't have to do it every day if they don't want to in a district. It just has to come up there. Following completion of a school year, school district may utilize a collaborative online document or spreadsheet, allows multiple authorized users to update or make additions posted to it. So what that says, if they want to build something up, they can literally walk into the classroom, snap a picture of a title page of a book or of a handout you've got, automatically post to the website, and that's how difficult it is to do this. They seem to think it's an undue burden. They tell me how much it is, and I think you're all going to hear that. And I'm going to tell you, we strongly disagree, and I encourage you to think about it, because that's really how much it takes. Middle of the page, on page 3, nothing in this section should be construed to retire digital reproduction of learning material activities, separate reporting. You can put them all in a single volume. So if you're teaching, as we heard yesterday, maybe they'll do 100 books. And it says you can put all 100 of those books in a single deal. All it means is that someone has to be able to come up and see what the title of the book is and what it is. The book's not there, but it gives you a reference to it. If they're using a website to teach, they don't have to post the website. All it has to be is the top line on it to show it's there. Guest lecturer comes, they need to know whose name it is. Goes on through, if you're teaching, we heard testimony, if you're teaching from newspapers, we use one of our local newspapers, or we use a national newspaper. A simple reference is we use the paper on a daily basis in this classroom is enough. You don't have to pull out the actual article as do it. It's used in this section, bottom page 3. Activities include assemblies, guest lectures, other educational events facilitated by schools, individuals not employed or associated by the school, and really important, school district, excluding student presentations. So if kids bring items to class, or if a kid makes a presentation, there needs to be no reference of any kind to it. Learning material includes textbooks, reading material, videos, digital material, websites, assessments, and online applications. If you go to your local school district's website, you'll find most of that stuff's there other than the actual materials. We've told them we're very flexible about how we define those materials. This is not intended in any way to be a major burden on either a teacher or a school district. It's truly transparency so you can see. Used for student instruction talks about how you go about it. It's just a definition. And that is the bill. And it was really interesting to listen to testimony because we heard that parents don't care, and you certainly haven't heard from anybody. I can tell you I've heard from hundreds, and I'm getting more by the day. We had a parent showed up right after we heard testimony from the organization. One of the gals right here in town said, hey, I went and tried that. And you said we can go in the classroom. Our school said, no, I can't go in the classroom, she said. So I emailed all my teachers, my kids, and asked for the materials. And she said 2 of them were really great. Sent me textbooks, told me the stuff. 3 of them said, go up the ladder, start working up. So I'm going to read you what our statewide school organization testified to and what went out on their newsletter. This is how they perceive transparency. This is their definition. There are many processes in place through which parents can have access to materials and lessons that their students are learning. If a parent has a question or an issue with a particular lesson, they have always been able to reach out to their children's teachers and work their way up the chain of command to get questions answered and issues resolved. I represent to you that's not even close to transparency. I also represent to you, how are you going to know what questions to ask if you have no idea what's being used to present? That's where the questions come from if you've got some. This in no way sets curriculum, tells them what subjects to teach, how to teach it, what materials they can or can't use. They can use it all. What I want is a well-rounded education, and if we can see what's there, we know they're being taught both ends of it. And after all, what we want our children to do is be able to use a critical thought process to make their own decision between right, left, top, bottom, and the middle. And that's really what we look at. And it was shocking to me because when I brought the bill, I was probably a lot more flexible until I saw how inflexible the system was towards honest transparency. We actually heard in testimony, sometimes it may be better if parents don't know what materials we're using because it might be inflammatory. That came out in the committee. So I represent to you, this bill is important. And we're going to find a way. There's no penalties in it. So if they don't follow it, it might take us a year or 2 to get it down exactly. We don't want to make it where teachers have to spend an hour before class putting anything together, or a district has to hire some people to compile it. But their testimony was almost all the way through. We already do it. And if they're already doing it, I represent in this digital age, it doesn't take much to post. And it really, really is a great tool. As a parent, do you think you should have to drive in and hunt your teacher up or do whatever? Or would you rather look and see what it is and see if it looks good? And I would represent to you, in 99% of the time, you're going to look at it and you're going to say they're teaching Lord of the Flies. They're teaching whatever, and you know what it is. And it's not a problem. But there's certain instances that may pique your attention. And that's what we want. What we really want, after all, is not just engaged students, we want engaged parents. And that's what this bill really does. It helps get parents where they care what their kids are being taught and gets them to ask those critical questions that help the teachers do a better job of getting their kids educated. With that, I'd stand for any questions.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Majority Leader, I just want to double check, and I think I heard it correctly. And the language, the word is may, not shall, correct? Because that would, I think, alleviate a lot of concerns, at least from what I've heard. And maybe, could you just kind of expound on that? Because appreciate it. Thank you.
Further discussion, maybe we'll round up some questions before going back to the sponsor. Senator Driscoll?
Absolutely. Thanks for the clarification. I don't get across all the time. It's absolutely may. There's no teeth in the bill either. So if they don't, nobody's going to jail, nobody's losing their job, and the school district's not losing their money. If they're not doing it, I would suggest to you we'll come back and we'll find some teeth for this. But I'd like to give them all the flexibility we can to make it as easy as possible. We'll have some hiccups. We're going to have some times to figure out how to do this with the easiest. But this bill really is a significant bill. I can tell you, we've been reached out to nationally. There's a number of organizations that are looking at this. It's not what it's been portrayed as. If you pick up or do a search on this bill, you'll find it has a whole bunch of terms and a whole bunch of things that it doesn't do. What this bill does is transparency for parents and the system.
Further discussion, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, a couple of concerns, and honestly, I voted against this legislation in committee and still have all the same concerns I had in committee. I'll get to those in a moment, but to start off by addressing the may or shall and the fact that this has no teeth. The mays were read, but the shalls weren't. If you read the bill, you're going to see some shalls. In fact, it starts off in the A paragraph. Not later than July 1st, it's been amended, 2023. And each school year thereafter, each school district shall publish prominently on the school district's website the following. It's not a may, it's a shall. You have to do all of those things. The mays that were read were possible ways to comply with the shalls. So to be clear, you're doing those things. It's just here are a couple of ways you may do those things if you see fit. Madam Chairman, on page 3, you also have a shall in the C paragraph. The list of learning material and activities shall remain on the school district, etc. You have in the D paragraph that if it contains works by multiple authors, it shall be identified by a table of contents, etc. So the idea that this is not a set of requirements and this is optional is certainly not accurate to the language. The suggestion was that since there are no penalties, it's okay if they just don't follow the law. I don't know that that's the standard we look to when we write laws, is that the penalties aren't harsh enough, so if somebody wants to ignore it, it's fine. I don't think that is a best practice for us. If we're going to put something into law, I think we would expect that even if there aren't harsh penalties on the other side, that those that are instructed to follow it, for example, our schools, would do their best to follow it out of respect for the law, not out of fear of the law. So from that standpoint, I hope we don't just assume that it's okay if they don't do this because we didn't put enough teeth in it. I think we have to evaluate it based on what it does and whether it's good for the state of Wyoming or bad for the state of Wyoming, regardless of the penalty phase as to whether or not that goes into place. So regarding what is here and the need for transparency, if transparency required 0 time and 0 effort, I don't think any of us would have any problem supporting this legislation because, sure, it'd be nice if you could just have insight and direct vision into what's going on in a classroom. And that's already taking place certainly in classrooms at high school levels or even junior high level where you have Canvas or other, I shouldn't have said that, where you have my apologies to the body. It actually is a proprietary name, where you have a learning management system that provides an opportunity to see directly into classroom assignments. Then you already have that ability. It's not laid out in a long list that's published on a website. It's you as a parent have a parent access code that lets you into that account as the parent, and then you have vision into everything that's going on. And probably all, but maybe not all, of our schools around the state are using learning management systems at this point in time. There are several different types, and each of them has that capacity, although I can't say with certainty that they all have that capacity turned on. That might be something that's beneficial, is just make sure everybody has that parental engagement option checked in their learning management system. That would then allow you to literally see, here is the assignment for today. Sometimes you can even download it from there if it's a digital copy. Other times it's referring to a text, and then you would know what text it's referring to. So you can get there, but not a list like this. So, Madam Chairman, what's the concern here? It is a lot of work. A lot of work. That was really the testimony we heard. It wasn't, we don't want transparency, we want secrecy. It was, really, we have to do all of this also? Our mission as educators is to teach the kids. We have a lot on our plate. It takes a lot of time. Every minute of this is a minute taken away from teaching. Teaching is the mission. Transparency is something we'd like to see, but honestly, as a parent, given a trade-off between the two, do I have full transparency or do I have quality education? I have to admit, I'm opting for the quality education. I tend to favor that. But it's not a simple either or. There's certainly middle ground. This takes it to emphasizing transparency as a priority that will take away from classroom, and that's what we heard from the teachers. We heard this as being a level of micromanagement and time accountability. And again, when you have to publish something to a public standard, this is something we've all experienced, it takes more time. So what do I mean by that? As legislators, we all know that if we're writing a little email to each other, no worries. Just say what you mean. You don't even need to have good grammar. But if you're writing it and it's going to end up published, public, in a newspaper, it takes 10 times as much time to get that right, Madam Chairman. These are teachers. Let's let them teach. There was some suggestions by the folks that came in and said, well, what else could we do about ensuring engagement with these learning management systems, district-wide approaches, things that don't take away from teaching time. Now you'll hear suggestions that this is simple. I'd encourage everyone to do it for the rest of the day. Take a picture of everything you read for the rest of the day. Do it. That's what this is about. New material, take a picture of it on your phone and then post it to a spreadsheet. Document it for the rest of the day. Just one day in your life. If it felt like a good experience at the end of the day, vote for this bill. If that seemed easy and not an infringement upon all of the other things you're doing, then maybe this is reasonable. That's not what we're hearing. That's certainly not what I would expect. This is an undue infringement. It's micromanagement, and it takes away from the quality of the teaching. I'd ask the body to reject it. I think the intentions are good, but it wouldn't realize the intentions.
Senator Cost, then Senator Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Couple of problems. In my math courses that I taught, I probably had at least 40, if not 50 books and units of material that I used, parts of each, some of them more than others. I certainly didn't use all of them. So how do I identify what I use and what I don't use? We can look at a book and we can look at its title and we can look at its contents, but what's it being used for? Teachers use different things to produce different ways of getting at something. All of a sudden now, I feel like we're saying, okay, we don't trust you. We're going to see what you're doing. And what's the end result? So that somebody can attack? So that somebody can say, this is a bunch of garbage. I don't want that in my class. And that one screen can produce problems. I don't think we're doing this for the right purposes. We're trying to educate kids. We believe our teachers are teaching facts and not what they want over here or over here. I really struggle with where this is going and what it's going to do. The headhunters around the state can easily start saying, aha, you guys better take a look at this. This is bad or that's bad. Social studies book. Is there stuff in there that's offensive? Well, I don't know from a table of contents, but the table of contents doesn't look very good, so I'm not going to support it. We don't know how teachers teach. You know, maybe we ought to ask all lawyers to put all their publications out there so that we see everything they're using and that we see the transparency there. And maybe it's time for our doctors to do that too. Oh, but wait, we classify them as professionals, don't we? But teachers aren't, even though we say they are. Our teachers do a good job. I think this is not doing what it would need to do. When new books are purchased by the school district, guess what? They have to go on public review for 30 days before they're purchased. Anybody can come in and go through the books, go through the other materials that go with those to evaluate them. I'll show you how many are interested in it. It's publicized in papers and all. 90% of the time, nobody comes in and even looks at them. They sit on a shelf. They sit in a window for people to look at, and nobody comes in to see them. How much of this is going to go out there and be a time-consuming effort for people to do, and yet in the end, nobody's going to look at it, or the majority of people aren't going to look at it? I don't see this as being an advantage to moving education ahead. I see this as an advantage to questioning what's out there, and that really disturbs me. I would be a no vote.
Senator Scott?
Madam Chairman, I listened to the testimony in committee.
Senator Scott, before we need to close that door. I can't hear. Thank you. Senator Scott.
Okay. Madam Chairman, I listened to the testimony in committee, and it was quite clear that the educational establishment did not like this bill. And let me sort of explain. I think some of it was they were over-interpreting what the requirements actually were, and frankly, seeing things that go bump in the night. And we heard from some teachers who are doing some pretty creative things. And that's nothing new. I used the example that I experienced in the 8th grade, where my teacher, who was very good, who actually eventually went on to become Speaker of the House later in his career, he imported things off the day's newspaper and used them to teach points in American history, and things off the financial page to teach us about how the financial system worked. This bill is not intended to stifle that kind of creativity. It was being interpreted that way. I think if we look at it carefully, we'll find that it does not. But if it does, then we need to modify the bill. That's one of the reasons for the delayed effective date. Part of the objection we had was that it would take too much time. There might be an instance or two in the bill where they could be interpreted in ways that do. I think half of that will be education and what's really there. But there may be some things, the way we've worded something, where, again, with a careful look at it, with a delayed effective date, we can find those and fix those. And then I think there was just flat resistance that some of our educational establishment does not care to have the parents looking at what they're being taught. And that's unfortunate, because one of the best things could happen as a result of this bill, Madam Chairman, is if we get more parents engaged with the school knowing what's being taught, trying to assist in the job of teaching their kids, because the parents can have a tremendous influence. And I think as we get into the schools more, we're going to find that those school districts that are effectively encouraging parental involvement are doing a better job than those who are not, because the parents can be major allies, Madam Chairman, and I think this bill is designed to encourage that by giving them better knowledge of what's actually going on. So for all those reasons, I think it's important to move this bill forward to try to get better and constructive parental involvement, to try to lay down, destroy some of the fears that we have that are going on in the absence of information as to what's actually happening in the classroom. And I think that will be a positive result of this bill ultimately. So I don't think we should be discouraged by the current resistance from the educational establishment, because I think this bill can solve a number of problems, ultimately can improve the relationship that we've got between the educators and the parents. At the same time, I do think we need to be careful. You can get too zealous in this area and do something where you require a time commitment that is simply not worth it. So yes, it needs to be refined, but clearly there is an area that is not the rightful parental demand to know what's going on in the classroom, to understand what's being taught, is not being met. And I think this bill is a step forward in this.
We're on the bill. Senator Landon.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. That's exactly right. What the senator from the Toronto County just said. You can get overzealous. I'm a little bit surprised, actually, that this bill came out of committee with the recommendation that it did. I think that we really, I think there are a couple of pretty decent ideas here, but I think it actually, you know, I agree with the chairman of education. I think it really cries for interim topic, both of them. There just hadn't been a lot of time to, I don't even know what we have in the basket of goods. What does this change in the second part of the bill? We got two things going on here. First of all, we're wanting our teachers to publish everything that they might use to teach somebody. Well, okay, how does that look? I'm anxious for our education committee to have an opportunity to get together and try to sort that out. I guess what really I'm concerned about, senators, is passing a bill and saying, go ahead and pass it, and then we're gonna fix it. And that's kind of what I'm hearing here this afternoon. You know, let's put this in place, and then we'll spend the next year and a half and figure out what we can do with it. That's really not what we do here, or what we had not a shot at should be doing. That's causing me a little bit of concern. So, Madam Chairman, I'm gonna vote this through on first reading. I'm gonna listen and learn, but I've got some real concerns with this bill. Thank you.
Senator Garou, then Senator Kolb.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I got a question for the sponsor, because I'm now, as usual, I'm a little confused. Not be a big surprise to anyone here. When a good friend from Fremont County asked a question about the mays and the shalls, and he gave an answer, and then I got real comfortable with this bill. Then I heard my friend here from the Ivory Tower, and then I got a little bit squished up again about it. So now I want to ask her flat out. So I read in the upper paragraph there, it says may. And then based on the question that was asked, I took that to mean school district may do this. And then all the shalls were, these are things that you shall provide, but you may do this. And that was the controlling interest of the bill. So if you could help me out, am I right on that? Is the may the controlling part? And where does the may end and the shalls begin, and how does that play out? So just when you get a chance. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Grill. Hold that thought. Senator Kolb.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I rise in support of this bill. From what I hear and what I've seen, we live in a day and age where people are demanding to know what is going on in school. As the bill title accurately says, transparency. Now, yes, it's going to be a work in progress to find out just where that's going to land, but we have to allow our parents to understand what's being taught. And on the flip side, if there is no issue with the schools, if the schools are teaching, I guess, curriculum that everybody agrees with, there isn't a problem. So I think we have to look at it as transparency and knowing what's going on, and frankly, most likely, it's probably fine. But everybody's suspicious. And I'm not saying they're necessarily doing anything wrong or covert, but I think we need more transparency just because of the temper of the nation right now. We need to show in some meaningful manner to our parents what is being taught in school. And I don't see being open a negative thing to do. I think the light will basically clear out the darkness. And if we shine the light on this, it's going to make everybody more at ease on how they feel about the curriculum that their children are being taught. And I think this is the right thing to do. And I look forward to hearing more debate. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On and for the bill, I think that parents and taxpayers have a right to know what the curriculum is and what's being taught. And in one of my school districts, we have a full-time curriculum director, so I bet they could help with this project. And as far as we don't pass things through that we need to keep working on, I would just say monthly ad valorem taxes. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. We're on the bill. We'll go with Senator Rothfuss, then Senator Hutchings. Oh, excuse me. Let's go Senator Hutchings and then Senator Rothfuss. I apologize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate that honor for the bill as well. I was looking on page 2, lines 5 through 8. In that paragraph, it mentions that a list of learning material and activities that were used for student instruction by the school during the preceding year. So it doesn't sound as if, the teacher's going to be on this database every day. I think it would behoove the teacher to maybe write down on a sheet, or if it's provided by a database manager, they can write down what they use to teach the students. We're living in a day and age, I believe, where all the stop signs have been removed. Everything is permissible. And if a parent who is concerned wants to look in and see what's being taught, I think it's so important to have this type of list available for them. We know that things are going on in schools that you may agree with, I may not, but I'd like to see that. I'd like to know. So thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to let my opinion be known.
Thank you, Senator Hutchings. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, addressing the concerns that we've heard, I think there's a few important concepts. One is I don't have any doubt that we've had parents around the state that have looked for information and have struggled to get that information. There's no question that that has happened, and they were frustrated, and rightly so. And the process was probably confusing and challenging, and they were looking for a solution. Madam Chairman, not every solution needs to be a new law from the Wyoming legislature where you have a one-size-fits-all option, and that's the recourse. I don't think anyone in my district, maybe a few, but overall, I'll say my district doesn't want this. Wouldn't it be nice if the school board were to decide? Oh, they could do that already, Madam Chairman. As a matter of fact, they could implement this policy tomorrow. They could hear from the parents, and believe me, the parents, they show up to school board meetings. when they have something they're worried about. They have the opportunity to speak. They have the opportunity to ask for change. And if that change seems warranted, the school board will adopt a policy to represent that. It could be exactly this bill, or it could not be this bill, which would also be reasonable, because again, we live in different districts, we live in different communities, they have different views. Mine doesn't want to do this. Mine wants the teachers in the classrooms teaching the kids instead of figuring out how to put things on websites, I assure you. So maybe the solution is, if this bill were just a bunch of mays and we said a school board may adopt policies regarding transparency, that would be fine, Madam Chairman, and that's a bill I could support, but it's a bill I wouldn't need to support because a school board already may adopt policies related to transparency. We don't need this bill. A couple of anecdotal circumstances where people really are having challenges is not always a justification for heavy-handed response from the Wyoming legislature. Sometimes, every once in a while maybe, we can let this be handled at the local level and let local control and local hearings look into this situation and try and investigate. But the last point I wanted to look at, there was some discussion about stifling creativity, and the concern we heard there is, if I make it a burden, if I make it additional work to bring in outside materials, or simply to teach from a diversity of materials, and that becomes harder, what is my knee-jerk response to do? Teach fewer materials. If it takes me an hour of time to publish 150 books that I want to use for my class, or it takes me just a few minutes and I'm picking one pop-up book I'm going to show the kids it each and every day, it's less work. So even if it doesn't intentionally stifle creativity, the reality is this probably would stifle creativity, Madam Chairman. But again, if you do like this policy and you do want to support this policy, go home, talk to your school board, and suggest that they adopt it. Have some local hearings and see if it's a good idea for your community. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Further discussion on the bill, Senator Driscoll.
Everybody look up, sharpen your ears. You see any black helicopters or hear them? Because we're sure getting a whole barrage of them. There's everything but the dog ate my homework here. And, you know, it's kind of interesting. Want to go to an interim. This is brand new, we haven't heard about it. Press release on it was months ago. I've got hundreds of comments. I'll represent that there's parents in every school district statewide that want to see this. There's not one of them that says my district doesn't want it, because I'm hearing from all over the state. I'm going to go back to the mays and the shalls, and I appreciate that. It was a great one, and it's a typical deal. Watch my hand over here, because here's how it works. The mays are ways you can do it. That's correct. It says you may wait till July. It says you don't have to post it every day. You can wait till the end of the school year to post it. You don't have to do it the day before the class or the day of the class. It says by July. So you got a lot of time. Shall's this. Let's go to page 3. This is tough. List of learning materials and activities shall remain on the school's website. Wow, we made them put it up there? That's a difficult shall, because it's got to stay there for a year. That's a tough one. Let's go to the next shall, because there's 2 in this bill. The other one is on the last page, and it says, trying to find it, I'm a little confused on my teaching here. But the shall on the last page is a shall for the school boards. They shall publish a list of instructional activities and learning material on the school district's website. Those are really tough shalls, folks. There's 2 of them. One of them says it stays up for a whole year. The other one says you're going to do what the bill asks. And it's kind of interesting. Now I'm going to go back to, we heard, well, I use 40 or 50 books and I use 2 pages out of them. I'm guessing those 40 or 50 books get used pretty steady through different years. This doesn't say that you have to use what you post. So if you want to post 85 books that you might use, you can do that. There's one other piece, and they testified to this. Let's go back and talk about the learning management systems and the process we use to bring books into the classroom. Does that take effort? Obviously it does. They hold hearings, they do public notice, they bring it out. Does it sound really tough that if you're going to hold a public hearing, that you actually push a button on one of those titles that says, let's post it on the website? Doesn't seem too tough to me. If we're going to use a national newspaper or a local newspaper, we're going to publish that we're using that paper over the course of the year. Not too tough. 50 textbooks a week of young kids types books. Guessing they get used all the time. When I was there, it was Spot and Dick and Jane, a few things. Doesn't seem too tough to put the title up and who wrote them. I don't think it's a real honor. And, a lot of teachers have lesson plan type stuff. Yep, it's not too hard to get it out of there. It's interesting. I really do think we're listening to those black helicopters. I think there's lots more put into it. If it really is very honors, we don't need an interim to tell us that it's tough to do or it's not working right, which, by the way, the dog ate my homework's not an excuse. And I'm getting the feel that's going to come at me as, oh my gosh, we just can't comply because it's too tough.
Senator Driscoll, can you get a little closer to your microphone? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, sorry, I'm kind of bad about it. So I think I've gone through a huge part of it. I don't think it's anywhere near needing an interim. There's only one subject in here. It's transparency. We've done interims on transparency before. I think it's pretty clear that we want to be transparent. The other part I want to get across to everybody that's listening out there, we've seen this across, not just in this room, but across, as an attack on education and a threat. I think we have a great education system in Wyoming. Just came from a lunch, it's one of the best in the United States. Does that mean that we can't try to do ways to engage and make it better? I'm proud of our teachers. I'm proud of our school system. I've got family that's teachers, administrators. My daughter's a teacher. We've had a lot of input back and forth with them. And it's absolutely stunning to me, the amount of kickback and the unwillingness to even try. And I think that's what we saw in committee was, if there'd even been a little bit of a reach out that said, yeah, we think maybe we can do this. What I've heard resoundingly from the administrative, the upper ends, the organizations, no can do, can't do it, black helicopters, doesn't work. I'm encouraging all of you to pass this bill out. There won't be black helicopters. The comment that 90% will not utilize it, likely true, likely true. I use the same approach on the Hathaway Scholarship. We don't get a lot of those kids all the way through college. Is it worth it for the ones that we do? The answer is resoundingly yes. We love it. I'd love to see a 90% graduation rate on the Hathaway, but I'm happy to have a 10 or a 15 because those kids are protected forever. That's what this bill does. It's how do we engage people in our system? And we heard a quote from out here from a good friend of mine from up in the north, and it's enlightening to me. And I think it is so true. And I need help. He said, we don't know how teachers teach. I'm guilty. I don't. And this is one of the means that helps me learn how to see how teachers teach. I want to know. I want the best education possible for the kids. And I represent to you this is a tool that I think helps. Now, maybe the professionals disagree with me. And if it's really, really bad and it's really honors, we've changed and undone bills before. I encourage you to vote yes.
Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Scott's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 62, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. No. Division, chairs in doubt. All those in favor, please stand.
Sit down. It wasn't a threat.
All those opposed? Vote was 16 to 12. Senate File 62 is passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 11. Will the reading, Senator Rothfuss?
Madam Chairman, may I have the privilege of the floor for a moment?
Senator Rothfuss.
Next. Madam Chairman, I just wanted to discuss a little bit about how we've been doing procedure, I think, for the last few days, where we've been straying, I think, a little bit from how the procedure should be done. And what we're doing sometimes is kind of taking away from the introduction of the bill by the bill's sponsor so that we can rush to the standing committee amendment. And I don't know why we've sort of moved in that direction, but the standing committee amendment doesn't have to be worked right away, right? The standing committee amendment belongs to the standing committee that passed it. It does not belong to the sponsor, and the sponsor has the first right and opportunity to introduce the bill. So they should have an opportunity to explain the bill. Sometimes it's friendly, sometimes it's unfriendly, but it's not their responsibility to explain the standing committee amendment. That's up to the committee chair. And we've sort of been flying loose in ways where the explanation for the bill has come after the standing committee amendment. Literally nobody knows what's going on in the standing committee amendment. So it's a tough vote or a partial explanation. So, Madam Chairman, I'm just asking that we try and go back to the standard procedure of having, after it being read in, the prime sponsor having the first opportunity to go through their bill, and then once they've been given that opportunity, going to the standing committee for however they want to work that, so that we have the owner in the right order taking responsibility for what they're bringing to us, Madam Chairman. So I hope we'll go back to kind of doing it that way, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but I've seen some circumstances where I've been concerned that it's been confusing on the standing committee, who owns it, who wants it, and why. So that was just my suggestion, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Scott.
Chairman, I don't think there is a standard procedure on this. In all the years I've been here, I've seen it done both ways. And I'll tell you what I do as a committee chairman is, now some of the time, the standing committee amendment is just a technical correction on something. You get it done, get it out of the way in a hurry. What I do is where there is a substantial one, I try to go to the sponsor and say, how do we want to handle this? How's going to be the best way to present it? And sometimes you do the standing committee first and get that done. Sometimes you say, no, you've got to understand the bill before the standing committee amendment makes sense. So you do an explanation by the sponsor and go to the standing committee. We need flexibility, and we've always done it, Madam Chairman. There's 2 or 3 different ways you can do it. We've always done it 2 or 3 different ways. So I don't think we need to have a rigid procedure here. I think it depends on the bill. It depends on the nature of the standing committee amendment and whether you need to be able to understand the bill to vote intelligently in the standing committee amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Senator Rothfuss's point is taken, and I can tell you right now, I think I'm relying on the expertise of the chairman who have worked these committees, or worked these amendments, worked these bills. Senator Landon, did you have some comments?
Madam Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to remind fellow senators, we've worked 2 bills in over an hour. And I just wanted to remind of that. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, with Senator Rothfuss and then Senator Driscoll.
Nope, Senator Driscoll first. I'm sorry.
Senator Driscoll.
Thank you. I'll follow procedure, however, but I will tell you what happened on this bill so everybody can understand it. The chairman came to me, said, what is your preference? And I said, I was in committee. It took half of the bill away, and I would just as soon you disposed of it to start with. And when I explained the bill, the first thing I said was, we've now got rid of the second half of the bill, which made time-wise back to taking time. I didn't spend any time to explain it. I just said the standing committee amendment eliminated it. I thought it was an efficient way to do it. Maybe there's a rule out there on how to do it, but I've seen the standing committee amendments forever go at the start of a bill, middle of a bill, end of a bill. It's usually up to the sponsor, and in this case it was. The chairman came to me and the sponsor said, please dispose of it. So that's my explanation.
Thank you. Senator Rothfuss, and I will say, we have an example, though. Senator Case presented a bill. He dealt with the standing committee as he was working through the pages, so I don't think we've deviated. I really do think we're, at least from your chair's perspective, I'm trying to rely on the expertise of the chairman who's worked that bill, is bringing the standing committee amendment. I think we need that flexibility, but Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have rules of order, and those aren't the rules of order. We do it, I understand that. But the rules of order relate to who has ownership of the motions, who has ownership of the bill, and who should be entitled to explain the bill. And I do appreciate the fact that coordination is useful, but at the end of the day, the idea that a sponsor is somehow responsible for moving a standing committee amendment, that's not necessarily the case. It doesn't have to be their amendment, but we do that sometimes. And the idea that that the sponsor doesn't have the first opportunity to speak to their bill, once again, is not appropriate. A chairman doesn't have the authority on this floor to take first speech on a bill that isn't theirs. If it is their committee bill, of course they do. But if it isn't, they don't. And again, this body gets to make decisions on rules of order, but if this body doesn't want the sponsor to have the first right to speak on their bill, I don't know how we're going to proceed. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rothfuss. Point well taken. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Not to belabor anything, I just want to remind everyone that your budget amendments for third reading tomorrow are due by 5 o'clock today. That's an important reminder to all of you. So if you don't have them in, get them in by 5.
President Dockstetter.
Thank you. Encourage the body to move along. We've got about roughly 14 bills out there. Let's go to work. Thank you.
The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 11. Will the reading clerk please read in the Senate file?
Senate File 11, Display of State Flag, an act relating to a state flag, sponsored by Senator Anderson. He was referred to committee number 6, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Ellis, Garou, Landon, Salazar, and Schuler. Senator Ellis, chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 11 do pass. And for an explanation of the bill, I'd like to call on Senator Anderson.
Senator Anderson.
Madam Chairman, I move Senate File 11, display of state flag. Everybody relax. This is not going to be anything that's going to make you squishy or anything. Just relax and enjoy this. I'm going to give you a little history lesson. A little history lesson here. In 1916, we did not have a flag. We were 16 years old as a state. 26 years old as a state. We did not have a flag. So the Daughters of the American Revolution had a contest. Dr. Grace Hebbard from the University of Wyoming was the state regent for the DAR. So they had a contest. And there was a young lady that just graduated from the Chicago Institute for Art and lived with her parents, moved to Buffalo with her parents and lived on the Cross H Ranch. And her dad encouraged her to design a flag. And she worked really hard at that because she was a perfectionist. And she did come up with a design for the flag. She mailed it in, and a week later, Dr. Hebbard called her. She had won the contest. And this body, in 1917, passed that flag design. That flag design being almost what you see now, except the buffalo looked away from the staff. She put the buffalo away from the staff because it should be free and it's free to roam, and it was our symbol of the state. So her design had the buffalo facing out. Dr. Hebbard did not like that design, and Dr. Hebbard was in charge of getting the flags made, and she got them made just like you see them today. That's not the flag we passed. Anyway, that's the flag we have today. I have a little excerpt from her journal here I'd like to read you. It's kind of fun. The bill was introduced in the Senate by the late Honorable W.W. Daley of Rawlins, Wyoming. This august body of men had a great deal of amusement at the expense of the bison in the design. One esteemed senator, being a Democrat, championed the cause of the party's emblem as the donkey was the only animal appropriate for the Wyoming flag. The Republicans upheld the elephant would be the animal, and the bull moose party proposed their symbol. The buffalo, as it turned out, was left intact. So that was in 1916. 1917, they passed it. In 1919, Governor Robert D. Carey and the late Honorable Eugene Sullivan of Casper presided upon the ceremony to accept the flag. So the flag was accepted just like you see it today. What happened in 1945, and this is before the LSO, I've heard that said a couple times. Before the LSO, they decided that they had not presented paid the $20 to Miss Verna Keys. Her name was Keys. It was spelled differently, but she married a Keys, and so her name was Verna Keys. So they decided they would present her with some flags, and Lester C. Hunt, who you remember designed the Bucky horse on our license plates, presented her with the flags. But what they said in that was that in lieu of any other reward or remuneration, that one of the flags aforementioned be delivered to her as the property of, and to remain in the home or homes of herself and her heirs only, upon condition that it shall never be otherwise displayed. Now you remember that's a flag with the wrong buffalo on it. So that's happened, and that's been the law ever since 1945. Her heirs came to me and wanted to change that because they were donating one to the library in Casper where Mrs. Keys lived, in my district, by the way, and then the other one to the museum in Buffalo where she originated from and where she designed the flag. So we've written in, just added a little paragraph here, unless Mrs. Keys or her heirs undertakes to donate the flag for public display at a Wyoming state, county, or municipal building. That's all it does, is give them the authority to donate it to a library and a museum. Thank you. Appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. Questions for the sponsor? Question being called. All those in favor that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 11, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Senate File 11 has passed Committee of the Whole.
It wasn't that easy.
The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 77. Would the reading clerk please read the bill?
Senate File 77, name change, duration of residency requirements, sponsored by Senator Ellis, an act relating to petitions for name changes. It was referred to Committee Number 1, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Cooper, French, Kolb, Cost, and Nethercott. Senator Nethercott, Chairman.
There is a standing committee amendment. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the due pass recommendation of Senate File 77. To explain the bill, I'll call on Senator Ellis, but there is a standing committee amendment. Can we have that read in?
Senate File 77, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 1, line 12, after.
And I'm hopeful it's acceptable to the body, but I do believe that the senator can present the standing committee amendment. It's quite simple and really the purpose of the bill. Good senators.
Thank you, Senator Nethercott. Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I explained when this bill came before you on introduction, I was contacted by a constituent of mine who was in an abusive relationship in another state. She moved to Wyoming to start a new life, and a big part of that for her was to change her name. In looking at the statutes, however, she found that Wyoming has a residency requirement of 2 years in the county before you can petition a court. This young woman had another opportunity, which required her to leave the good city of Cheyenne, and so she's still in Wyoming, but the clock starts all over again for her. So, as a result, she will have lived in Wyoming for nearly 4 years before being allowed to petition a court for her desired name change. In doing some more research and working with her, we discovered that Wyoming is an outlier in this regard. There are 38 states that have no specific residency requirements before they're allowed to petition for a name change. Of the states that do have a residency requirement, it's usually 6 months or less. And so this bill is really an effort to get Wyoming's laws more current. If you were to open your green books, you would see that the dates 1890 are affiliated with this original statute, which I think indicates that this has been on the books since statehood. A lot has changed since then. When we keep track of people, we use things like social security numbers and increasingly visual, digital depictions of individuals. So this is really an attempt to recognize that an individual doesn't need to have lived in Wyoming for 2 years before seeking this name change. The bill as introduced requested that we change that to 60 days, but with that, I would move Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate File 77. This would, after bringing this to the good members of our Judiciary Committee, increase that to 6 months, but also make a clarification that it wouldn't be to the county, it would be to the state of Wyoming. I think this is a friendly amendment. I urge your aye vote.
Question, we are on the Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate File 77.
Question.
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of Senator Nethercott's motion to adopt the Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate File 77, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate File 77 has passed the Committee of the Whole. We are back on the bill. Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of order. That was my motion on the Standing Committee Amendment. But happy to answer any questions if anyone has wants any further discussion. Just want to be clear.
Actually, both Senator Nethercott and Senator Ellis moved the amendment, I believe. But it's okay.
We're covered.
Question on the bill. All those in favor of Senator Nethercott's motion that when the committee whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 77 do pass, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 77 has passed Committee of the Whole.
Okay, the next the next bill for our consideration is Senate File 80. Will the reading clerk please read it in?
Senate File 80, Omnibus Water Bill Construction, sponsored by the Water Committee, an act relating to water development projects. It was referred to committee number, one moment please, 5, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, Bouchard, French, Costa, and Wasserberger. Senator Boner, chairman. Was re-referred to committee number 2, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Guru, Hicks, Kinski, Steinmetz, excused, Senator Perkins. Senator Kinski, acting chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Boner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so with a favorable recommendation in Senate File 80. There's a Standing Committee Amendment from Agriculture. I'd ask that that be read in.
Senate File 80, Standing Committee Amendment number 1, page 26, line 6 after.
Senator Boner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For an explanation of the bill, I refer to our colleague from the Bighorn Basin, far side of the room.
Senator French?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is from the Select Water Committee. This is an act relating to water development projects, authorizing construction of designated water projects, describing projects, specifying terms and conditions of funding for projects, providing grants, providing appropriations, amending sponsors' contingency funds, amending amounts and terms of appropriations for specified prior projects, transferring funds from Water Development 1 to Water Development Account 2, and providing for an effective date. Senators, I believe everybody's got these projects. There's roughly 19 or 20 of them. We discussed these over the summer in being curious, wanted to know, being new here, how this plays out between municipal and agriculture. And Faith passed out to everybody a sheet comparing the last 5 years. And if you look at that, the amount of money that went to municipal projects, ag projects over the years, then you go down to the bottom and you'll see totals there. And the total of 64,200,620 for municipal, 64,700,515 for ag, for an annual average of for municipal, 12,840,124, and for ag, 12,940,103. So, I was a little worried that maybe this was just strictly going to all ag. It's not. This benefits everybody in the state, whether you live in a town and you need water or an update to your water system, or it's going a pipeline running out to a subdivision, or improvements in an irrigation project, a canal, a diversion that's wore out, dangerous, needs to be redone. So I would urge everybody to please pass this. It's not one side getting more of a benefit than the other side. This is, as you can see with this chart, pretty even. And I ask that you please pass this bill.
Senator French, did you want to move and explain the standing committee amendment?
I'll let
Senator Boner, Senator French, who would you like?
Yeah, I'll move the standing amendment
Okay,
to Senate File 80.
Okay, so it's been moved. Discussion on the amendment? Do you want to explain what the amendment does?
I'll call a friend.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a technical correction by our staff, making sure that the interest rate adjusts if it goes above 4%, as it very well could be. Technical correction, that's all it is.
We are in standing committee amendment number 1. Is there discussion on the amendment? Questions being called. All those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1 to Senate File 80, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. There is another standing committee amendment. I'd ask that it be read in at this time.
Senate File 80, Standing Committee Amendment Number 2, page 7, line 14, delete.
Senator Hicks.
Madam Chairman, I move second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 80 and ask for your favorable consideration.
Just a point of order. Can you say that again? I think you said second reading.
Madam Chairman, I move standing committee amendment number 2 to Senate File 80 and would ask for your favorable consideration.
Please proceed.
Members of the body, this just goes in on page 7, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And these are all municipal water projects, as my colleague from Park County had talked about. They may be eligible for ARP funding. There's some guidance out there that certain municipal water projects are potentially available for use of those direct ARPA funds. And all this amendment does, Madam Chairman, is goes into each one of those municipal water projects and says, if ARP funds, if this project is eligible for ARP funding, it would be paid out of those ARPA direct monies instead of Water Development Account 1 and 2. That's all the amendment does, Madam Chairman. I'd stand for any questions.
Questions, Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, I've seen some cases in other areas where if you take federal funds, you're then subject to a number of the federal wage and hour regulations that run the price up significantly. I've even seen in our community where county commissioners turned federal money down in favor of local money because you could construct it so much cheaper without the feds. Is that a problem with the ARP money? And if so, is there an out for the project sponsors here if taking the federal money significantly raises the price.
Senator Hicks?
Well, Madam Chairman, I think that bus left the station when we accepted those art funds of the state of Wyoming. But specifically, at any point along, these are sponsor-driven projects. And each one of those sponsors can pull the plug on these projects at any one time. And so I think under a scenario like that, the way it's structured under the omnibus bill is they still have the ability to go back and work directly with water development on the determination. I think we can find that question, whether they would just be able to revert that back on second reading. I'll find out for sure. But we've already accepted these federal funds. And
Further
so
oh, go ahead, Senator Hicks.
these are part of the ARPA direct funds that the state of Wyoming has already have. So all of our other construction projects that we're funding out there would be subject to that same provision. But because water development is a little bit different because it's a sponsor-driven project, I can find out specifically if that contingency happened, whether the sponsor would then be able to go back and utilize those funds.
Further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senator Hicks' motion that when the committee of the whole rises to, all in favor of Senator Hicks' motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment Number 2 to Senate File 80, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We're back on the bill. Senator Kolb?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question for the bringer of the bill. Could they explain why the 2022 numbers for construction are at a 3.56 differential time, for between municipalities to agriculture? Just why was that needed, and just why is that a good thing? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Hicks?
And you direct me to, if I can get my colleague to direct me to the line in the bill, I can probably answer that question, where that's at. That's in the handout.
It was
Senator Kolb?
yes, Madam Chairman. It was on the handout.
So, Madam Chairman, if I could get the question again, please.
Senator Kolb?
An explanation on why traditionally they were, say, even between municipal and agriculture projects, close, usually slightly leaning towards municipal. But here in the 2022 omnibus water bill for construction, the municipalities is $5,591,000, and then the agriculturals, I'm just rounding, is off on $19,902,000. And I just wondered why there was such a disparity this time in the ratios, 3.56 between the municipal and agricultural projects.
Senator Hicks?
Yeah, Madam Chairman. So the answer to the question is those entities, those public entities, whether they're an irrigation district, which is a subdivision of state government, or a municipality or a water sewer district, come in at different times and will apply for financial assistance through the state through the water program, either for planning or for construction. So any given year, it depends on who applied to participate in the program. So it can vary from year to year. Some years it may be more heavily weighted with municipal projects. I would recall back when we did the Gillette Madison project. It was a $200 million project at that point in time. It was pretty heavily weighted towards municipal projects. We just have a situation in this biennium that we have more agricultural projects that are keyed up now to go to construction than we did municipal projects. I hope that answers the question.
We're on the bill. Senator Wasserberger?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a quick question about the Fontenelle Dam and the situation there. I don't know if this is in this bill or if it's in the next one, but if you would, it's the next one. We'll come back to that.
Further discussion on the bill? Are you ready for the question? Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of Senator Boner's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 80, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Senate File 80 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 82. Will the reading clerk please read in the Senate file?
Senate File 82, Supplemental Water Development Funding, an act relating to water development sponsored by the Water Committee, was referred to Committee Number 5, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass.
Senator,
What, I beg pardon?
oh, sorry,
Ayes,
Randy.
Senators Boner, Bouchard, French, Cost, and Wasserberger. Senator Boner, Chairman, was re-referred to Committee Number 2, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Guru, Hicks, Steinmetz, excused Senators Kinski and Perkins. Senator Hicks, acting chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Boner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, do so with a favorable recommendation in Senate File 82. To explain the bill, I refer to the chairman of the Select Water.
Senator Hicks.
Madam Chairman, there is a standing committee amendment. Could I have that read in at this time?
Senate File 82, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 1, line 1, delete.
Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I'm going to tell you what the bill is, and then I want to go to the standing committee amendment because the standing committee significantly alters the bill in its current form. I think this is an example of what my colleague from Natrona County was talking about earlier when we were having this conversation. So what the Supplemental Water Development Bill was originally designed at, when we took this up in September, some of our forecasts for revenues were pretty high at that point in time. Subsequent to that, we've had some potential additional information that's coming out as what's eligible for ARP funding and what is not. So what the bill did was look at a number of programs within the Water Development Office and provide some additional funding for those. Subsequent to that, Madam Chairman, we don't have the money that we thought we did. So the only thing you're going to see left in the bill is the 3 critical projects. I'll talk about those, but what I'd like to do is talk about the standing committee amendment. Madam Chairman, the standing committee amendment went in and removed all of section 1, which is a reduction of $7 million. It further went in on page 2 and got and removed Romanet I, which was a further reduction of $2 million. It also went in on page 3, Madam Chairman, under Romanet 4, and further reduced it by $2 million. And then if we go over to page 4, it completely eliminated section 3, which was an additional reduction of $2 million. We go over to Roman 5, got rid of the sponsor's contingency fund on page 5, which is an additional reduction of $13 million, or excuse me, let's see, that was an additional reduction of $4 million. We go over to page 6, was a further reduction in the standing committee amendment of $24 million for the Alkali Crick Reservoir project and a reduction of $30 million for the Levitt Reservoir project. All told, Madam Chairman, what the standing committee amendment did is pulled $71 million out of this bill. The only 3 projects that are left in the bill, if we're back on the bill, Madam Chairman, is if you'll go to page 2, is the new Romanet I under the standing committee is for the Fontenelle Dam Project. Remember, Fontenelle Dam is one of the most key assets in the entire Colorado River Basin. Why is that important? Because it is our lifeblood in the case of a curtailment. In other words, the lower basin states call to shut water off in the upper basin, or we end up in a situation where we have a demand management program where our heavy industries and our municipalities then have to go buy water from agriculture. So currently Fontenelle Dam has a capacity of 396,000 acre feet of water. The state of Wyoming is the only contractor in that dam for 121,000 acre feet. So what this would do, Madam Chairman, is allow the state of Wyoming to go in there and contract with the Bureau of Reclamation for the difference in that pool of 121 and up to 396,000. And it's very important. It also includes a provision in there that would allow the state of Wyoming to riprap the bottom of Fontenelle Dam. 3 years ago, our congressional delegation worked very diligently to get that into federal law that would allow the state of Wyoming to be able to riprap the bottom of that dam for another 80,000 acre feet of water. That's what these funds would do. It would allow the state of Wyoming, if necessary, to acquire that additional space and also riprap the bottom of Fontenelle. Why is that important? Because if there is a regulation of water, the people that are going to get hit the hardest is, number one, the city of Cheyenne. 40% of their surface water supplies come out of the Colorado River Basin, and they're a junior water right to most all other water rights in the basin. 20,000 acre feet, Madam Chairman. The next in the list is the Rock Springs Green River Joint Powers Board that supplies municipal water. And then after that, we start to get into our Trona industry in Sweetwater County. They currently have contracts with the state of Wyoming for part of that pool in Fontenelle. This should provide an insurance account for the state of Wyoming as we move forward, that we have access to that. Madam Chairman, our exposure under the Colorado River Compact on the maximum side is about 75,000 acre feet of water. The differential between what we currently have under contract and what we could potentially be under contract would allow the state of Wyoming 5 years of cushion, assuming that we were able to do that from any regulatory call. It provides all of our water users a significant level of cushion against curtailment or very expensive acquisition of that water right from another water user. Madam Chairman, what I'd like to do at this time is turn it over to Senator Steinmetz for an explanation of the Goshen Tunnel that's in the bill.
And Senator Hicks, we had the standing committee read in, but it hasn't been moved. Did you want to dispense with that now, or how would you like to handle that?
Madam Chairman, I would like to dispose of that amendment right now that removes $74 million for that bill. So if there's no questions on that, I'd ask for the question.
Questions on the amendment or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 82, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We're back on the bill. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So as you recall, in 2019, we had the Goshen Irrigation Tunnel collapse. It cut off water to 100,000 acres between Wyoming and Nebraska. 49% of that is in Wyoming. This is the funding to do the tunnels, to rehabilitate them for $21,810,000. The bill rose a little on us because when the Bureau of Reclamation evaluated tunnel number 1, there's tunnel number 1 and tunnel number 2, both built in 1917. They said that both tunnels needed to be rehabilitated. And so right now there are ribs like whale ribs on the insides of the tunnels. There are boards wedged above there holding the rocks up, and it is still a very dire situation that could prove to be catastrophic at any time. So this is a really important aspect of the funding source for GID, and I would ask for your favorable consideration.
Madam Chairman.
Senator Hicks.
The other section that's still in the bill is La Perelle Dam, and for an explanation of that, I would turn it over to my colleague from Converse County.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly to update the body on where we're at with La Perelle Dam. As a reminder, this is a dam just south of the interstate between Glen Rock and Douglas that is at risk of catastrophic failure. In fact, we've reduced the amount of water that can be stored in that dam due to concerns about the structure and the integrity of that structure. So we're making good progress in finding a place for a new dam, making sure that the geology is such that it will support a new structure. But it is going to be a very significant project, as you may imagine, but one that's absolutely necessary, not just for the folks who use the water from that dam, but to protect lives, protect property, which includes I-25 and the old highway that goes alongside that connects two of our largest cities. So as a brief update as to where they're at, it's important that we do use this one-time funding to go ahead and assist with this project. It is pretty good timing as far as having all these one-time funds available. So I'd ask for your support of the bill as we move forward with that project.
Further discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Boner's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 82, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The bill is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 81. Will the reading clerk please read in the reading file, or Senate File?
Senate File 81, clarification of existing state ownership of groundwater, sponsored by Senator Hicks, an act relating to water. It was referred to Committee Number 5, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Bouchard, French, Cost, and Wasserberger. Senator Boner, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Boner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so with the due pass recommendation on Senate File 81, and I refer to the Vice President for an explanation.
Senator Hicks.
Madam Chairman, has the bill been moved?
Yes.
Bill's been moved. Madam Chairman, just a quick explanation. This is just a very simple bill. It adds one line to our existing statutes, but let me tell you the genesis of this. Earlier this year at a Select Water Committee, there was a question that came up as to why in our Constitution do we claim all the surface waters in the state of Wyoming, but it's silent on groundwater. So we had our legal staff do a very exhaustive legal search of this, and I'll summarize some of the summary from that for the body's consideration. Article 8, Section 3 of the Wyoming Constitution says that priority appropriation for beneficial use shall give the better right in our constitutional provision. And while the state currently regulates all groundwater through a prior appropriation system, the precise question of whether the state owns the underground water in Wyoming has never been explicitly answered by the Wyoming Supreme Court. Based on the plain language in the Constitution and the nature of prior appropriation, the state likely owns the groundwater. Madam Chairman, Article 8, Section 1 says the water of all natural streams, springs, lakes, or collections of still water within the boundaries of the state are hereby to declare the property of the state of Wyoming. Madam Chairman, this has come up in other states. There's some pretty exhaustive legal analysis of that, but let me read the synopsis from our legal staff related to this question as to whether the state of Wyoming owns the groundwater or not. It says the Wyoming Constitution, not specifying surface or groundwater, but simply all water providing statutory clarification, may serve the legislature affirmatively declaring the existing law of the land rather than waiting for litigation to arise, whether through an intra or an interstate water dispute. Madam Chairman, this just provides the legislative declaration regarding the ownership of groundwater in our statutes. That's what the bill does, Madam Chairman. Stand for any questions. If there's no questions, I'd ask for your favorable.
Thank you. Senator Hicks, discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Boner's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 81, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. No. Senate File 81 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 41. Will the reading clerk please read in the Senate file?
Senate File 41, expanding Next Generation 911, sponsored by Senator Cost, an act relating to the administration of government. Was referred to Committee Number 1, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Cooper, French, Kolb, Cost, and Nethercott. Senator Nethercott, Chair.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Nethercott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it do so with the due pass recommendation of Senate File 81. To explain this bill, I call on Senator Cost.
Senator Cost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep this short so that we can keep moving. Senate File 41, expanding Next Generation 911. This was taking the original 911 statute and updating it to the Next Generation 911. The purpose of this is so that they can qualify for grants to be able to help fund the Next Generation 911 material. It consisted of basically three things. Number one, they had to create a board. The board, they decided to go with the commission board and move it to 13 people. The total cost, extra cost on that would be $3,500. So we're not talking about a lot of money to make the board 13. That was so that they would qualify for the grants. The director of the Wyoming Department of Transportation or his designee should serve as an ex officio was taken out because the director of transportation said he saw no need for himself in there because they had representation in the board now. Second was to create guidelines and standards. And third was to promulgate necessary rules and regulations. Just so that everybody's aware of it, funds collected from the 911 emergency tax imposed, which is, I believe, 75 cents per call, is what's still in there. There's nothing changed to that. So that's the way that it stays. Other than that, it's just an update so that they're going to be able to qualify for grants federally so that they can continue to move forward with Next Generation 911. And I would ask for your favorable recommendation.
Discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Nethercott's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 41, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Senate File 41 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 86.
Senate File 86, Wildfires One Call Exemption, sponsored by Senator Boner, an act relating to public utilities. It was referred to Committee Number 5, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Bouchard, French, Cost, and Wasserberger. Senator Boner, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Boner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so with a favorable recommendation in Senate File 86. There is a standing committee amendment. I ask that that be read in at this time.
Senate File 86, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 2, delete.
Senator Boner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 at this time. Before we get to that, I'm just going to go over briefly what this bill does. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very straightforward concept. We're going to exempt wildland firefighting activities from the one-call statute. And there's several reasons for this. First of all, the problem that we're trying to address is right now without the exemption, there's confusion as to who can help out, especially building fire breaks in this emergency situation. For example, a county road grader has been on the county road. They've asked him to help out and says, no, we can't do that. We don't have an exemption. That's been an anecdotal, experience from some of my constituents that has kind of led to the need of this bill. Really has had a chilling effect on some of the entities that are necessary to help support these firefighting activities. So right now the standard is that these firefighters are supposed to call one call. And one call does some great work, but they're just not able to help in these situations where even if they do get out to the right place at the right time, they're probably not going to be let on site because of the danger to their own safety. And also there's no ability to update these one-call centers as the constantly shifting fire necessitates constantly shifting the fire breaks. So just a situation where our statutes do not make sense. To be perfectly blunt, this is not followed at all. This requirement is not followed at all by anybody. The testimony we heard from our state foresters, all the hundreds of miles of fire line that we build every single year in a fire season, just and not a single call is really made. So it simply brings our statutes up to current standards, to current practice, as well as alleviates the chilling effect that the current statutes do have. That being said, on the standing committee amendment, we want this to be effective for the full fire season. So a simple amendment, change it from July 1st effective date to effective immediately. I can stand for questions on the amendment. If not, I call for the question.
Question being called on the amendment. All those in favor of Senator Boner's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 86, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We're back on the bill. Senator Boner?
That's the bill, Madam Chair. I'll stand for any questions.
Discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Boner's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 86, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The Senate file has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 100. Will the reading clerk please read in the Senate file?
Senate File 100, Stalking Amendments, sponsored by Senator Landon, an act relating to crimes and offenses. It was referred to Committee Number 1, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Cooper, French, Kolb, Costa, and Nethercott. Senator Nethercott, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Nethercott?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the due pass recommendation of Senate File 100. There is a standing committee amendment. Can I have that read in?
Senate File 100, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 11, after.
I would move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 100, and to explain both the amendment and the bill, I would call on Senator Landon.
Senator Landon.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman, and thanks to the Judiciary Chairman. You know, last night we got out of here pretty late from a committee meeting, and I turned on some of the late news, and ironically, knowing that I was going to present this bill today, Madam Chairman, it was all about this new crime that is starting to percolate and enter into the legal profession, and it is businesses surveilling their employees. And they do that unbeknownst to the employees by establishing little devices or little pieces of software on the equipment that their employees are using. And they spent about 5 minutes on that story. I thought it was interesting because that's exactly what we're talking about today, folks. Just a couple things I want you to think about as we look at these stalking amendments. 2 years ago, as last year we have the stats, but 3.4 million people were stalked by somebody in 2019. About a quarter of those were stalked using electronic surveillance. And that means those little surveillers that you can stick up underneath a car, or they can utilize various means of stealing your identity through your phone. You can go out and for about $50, you can buy this software that allows you to install it, and then, Madam Chairman, I can send your emails for you in case you ever need me to do that. But the problem is, obviously, that is an infringement on our rights. And we do not specifically in our statutes say that it's not okay for you to electronically surveil somebody or stalk somebody using electronic means. And so that's what this bill does. We go right into the title of crimes and offenses all the way to Article 5, which is the assault and battery statutes. The bulk of the bill, the only change in language in the bill is on page 2, and we create a new paragraph 4, and that states the following, and I'm going to incorporate, Madam Chairman, the Standing Committee amendment because it comes in right here. The Standing Committee amendment comes in on line 11, and so I'm going to read what it says, including the Standing Committee amendment. Using any electronic Paragraph B above says, unless otherwise provided by law, a person commits the crime of stalking if, with the intent to harass another person, the person engages in a course of conduct reasonably likely to harass that person, including but not limited to any of the combination of the following. And underneath that paragraph B, Madam Chairman, that's where we put subparagraph 4. Using any electronic, digital, or global positioning system device, and the Standing Committee amendment says, or other electronic means, to place another person under surveillance or to surveil another person's internet or wireless activity without authorization from the other person. Madam Chairman, the Standing Committee amendment simply inserts or other electronic means. Unless there's any questions, I would call for the question on the Standing Committee amendment.
We're on the amendment. Is there further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senator Nethercott's motion to adopt, or excuse me, Senator Landon's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 100, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We're back on the bill. Senator Landon.
Madam Chairman, so much that we could talk about in this area of the law. Unfortunately, it's growing. It's becoming a bigger problem. I wish we could have brought the deputy sheriff from Natrona County here on the floor so that everyone could hear from him and what they're dealing with. But I'm going to stop there. I think this is a very important bill, and I hope you'll support it. Be glad to answer any questions.
Discussion on the bill, Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, my question is a very simple one. Just looking at the language, it sounds to me like something I've heard some parents doing to their teenagers that they think need a certain amount of surveillance. How does this apply in that kind of family situation? Or is there something else here that makes it not apply?
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And a similar question about workplace considerations. Imagine you have a workplace vehicle and it has a tracking device on it, or the phone is owned by the workplace, things along those lines. I think that's probably taken care of, but I just wanted to explore that discussion. I think the legislation's a good concept. I just want to make sure we're getting it right. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Further discussion on the bill? Senator Landon.
So, Madam Chairman, a couple of very good questions. And I think if we go back to paragraph B under 62506, specifically, this is our stalking article. Paragraph B says, unless otherwise provided by law, blah, blah, a person commits the crime of stalking if with the intent to harass another person, that person engages in a course of conduct reasonably likely to harass that person, including but not limited to any of the following, and underneath that is where we bring in this language. So I think paragraph B covers both of those questions. If it's a business arrangement, I would like to hope that businesses would let you know if you have one of these on your car. It was interesting to me to see that story last night, that a lot of businesses aren't telling their employees. But regarding parents and such, I don't think that qualifies under paragraph B. So appreciate those questions. Hope that at least partially answers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing that's important is to go back to what we discussed, I think, yesterday, which is in every criminal statute, there's this concept of mens rea, or intent. And so you'll find that referenced in the criminal code. And so what's different here with the employer or the parent-child situation is that this is a crime. And so in order to be convicted of the crime, you have to be found guilty of committing a course of conduct, which is a pattern composed of a series of acts. So that certainly could apply with the use of electronic surveillance. But the use of those electronic surveillance and that course of conduct has to have the intention to harass. And so that harassment requires, it's including but not limited to verbal threats, written threats, lewd or obscene statements or images, vandalism or non-consensual physical contact directed at a specific person or the family of a specific person, which the defendant knew or should have known would cause a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress, and which does in fact seriously alarm the person towards whom it is directed. And so you have to have the intent to harass, which would subsume within it the concept of knowingly. Just growing each day. And so that is the difference there. Do you have the intention to harass, to put a person of reasonable fear of substantial harm? Those are the other elements associated with this crime of stalking that you don't see in the bill draft or in the amendment. So the use of those electronic equipment needs to apply in these circumstances. Whereas that child might be in fear of substantial harm based on their parents' surveillance of them. I don't think that's what's captured here in this law. I don't think that's the parent's intent, is to harass their child. I don't think that the law would apply. Plenty of affirmative defenses in those cases.
Further discussion on the bill, Senator Landon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one final thought, and I certainly didn't mean to confuse when I talked about last night on the news. It's just to make the point that these electronic devices and just the plethora of options out there that people have to utilize electronic means, in this case, to stalk somebody. What we're talking about in this piece of legislation is our stalking statutes. I have a feeling we've done a little bit of work here in the Wyoming Senate the last 4 or 5 years. We've done some good work, and I think this is something we're probably going to have to revisit as we go along. But hope you'll support this bill and move it along. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, there is a plethora of electronic devices. Any other discussion on the bill? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senator Nethercott's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 100, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Senate File 100 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 56. Will the reading clerk please read in 56?
Senate File 56, Lottery Amendments, sponsored by the Blockchain Committee, an act relating to the Wyoming Lottery, was referred to Committee Number 8, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Beitman, Cooper, Rothfuss, and Wasserberger. Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. Senator Anderson, what's your pleasure? Senator Anderson.
Madam Chairman, I move that when the committee of the whole rise to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 56 do pass. And to explain this good little bill, Senator Rothfuss.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, Senate File 56, Lottery Amendments, comes from the Select Blockchain Committee. It is a short little bill, and it was something that was discussed during the interim. The idea of potentially having our lottery either take cryptocurrency or provide awards in cryptocurrency, and to give them the flexibility statutorily to do so. This legislation does exactly that, and then provides clarifying language for the rest of it with regard to cash, both being placed in some places and removed in other places, recognizing a particular interest of some constituents that provided testimony where your small grocery stores or convenience stores that engage in traditional lottery transactions would not have the capacity necessarily to provide prizes in cryptocurrency, which the statute currently anticipates. So there was a removal of that to make it clear that if they were providing a cryptocurrency payment, that they would not be obligated to have the wherewithal to do that. But otherwise, you can see on page 2, it simply adds some new language on lines 6 and 7 that would indicate that a sale of a lottery ticket could be in a virtual currency as defined by statute, approved by the board. This is something that the Lottery Board is very excited about having as a tool, and they would look forward to trying to develop products in this space if they were given the statutory authority, Madam Chairman. That's the legislation. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Discussion on the bill? Are you ready for the question? I am. Seeing no one, question being called. All those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 56, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Senate File 56 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 55. Will the reading clerk please read in the Senate file?
Senate File 55, Insurance Sandbox, sponsored by the Blockchain Committee, an act relating to insurance, was referred to Committee Number 9, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Beitman, Cooper, Rothfuss, and Wasserberger. Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill, what is your pleasure, Senator Anderson?
Madam Chairman, I move that when the committee of the whole rise to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 55 do pass. And to explain this good little bill, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Rothfuss. There is an amendment. I'll let him decide when to read it in. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Rothfuss.
Good one. Thank you, Madam Chairman. All right, Madam Chairman, Senate File 55, Insurance Sandbox, is another product of the Select Committee on Blockchain Finance and Digital Innovation Technology. I wish this one were as short and easy to explain as the previous one. It is not. But, Madam Chairman, the concept is fairly simple and straightforward. Over the past few years, we've had a number of different sandbox-related bills. We had one that related to fintech sandboxes where banking could be sandboxed, and I'll talk about what that means in a moment. We had another one on health policy where there could be sandboxing there. And in this instance, we had a request about almost 18 months ago, I think, to provide flexibility through a sandbox for some different types of insurance products in the state of Wyoming, particularly with regard to reinsurance, where the state of Wyoming statutes, much like many other state statutes, were not particularly amenable to the needs of reinsurance and the reinsurance industry. So those are the companies that insure insurers. Reinsurance, it's very, very big dollars, but they typically aren't dealing with consumers, they're dealing with other insurance companies. That was the impetus for this legislation. We actually had further engagements in this other legislation that's related to the specific requests there, but this insurance sandbox seemed like a valuable possibility anyway to provide an opportunity for innovative insurance products and technologies and business models to be pioneered in the state of Wyoming, with the hope that that would allow development then of new businesses within the state of Wyoming. This legislation effectively mirrors the previous legislation in terms of the concept of how it's laid out, the consumer protections that are put in place with previous fintech, but is again specific to insurance and insurance products. So I'm going to try and go through relatively quickly because I know we're in a hurry, but if there are any questions and we want to dig more deeply into anything, I welcome the opportunity to do so. Pages 2 and 3 provide definitions. Page 4 gives an overview of how a sandbox works, which is the allowance of the insurance commissioner department to waive, given conditions that we'll talk about in a little bit, provisions of Wyoming statute that they feel comfortable waiving, we'll talk more about that, or rules and regulations pursuant to those statutes that they feel comfortable waiving if they put enough consumer protections in place and at a small trial scale with a maximum time period of 2 years that may allow for a third year upon approval of the commissioner. And the concept there is they would be trying something out which might not be consistent exactly with Wyoming statute, look at the business model, and then come back with recommendations for changes to statute if any are necessary. And we, the legislature, then would have the ability to look at that and deem whether or not they were good changes. The statutes that would be explicitly allowed to be sandboxed are pages 6 through 8, called out kind of on an individual basis in case there's any need for amendment or specific consideration. Page 9 discusses that a person who makes an innovative insurance product or service available to consumers pursuant to this chapter is not immune from civil damages or any consumer or criminal liability or protection laws. Other provisions of protection are provided, but one of the key protections, and something that was emphasized over and over again as a request of the insurance commissioner and insurance industry, was that nothing be done that would threaten in any way accreditation of our insurance company, NAIC accreditation. So you see on page 10, the E paragraph. This is really important. No waiver element of a waiver shall be granted under this chapter if the waiver element would jeopardize the state's NAIC accreditation or would violate any requirements associated with NAIC accreditation. We'll see on page 13 that that's further reiterated. Then 10 is standards for the application process, what it takes. There's a lot of surety. I'll come back and get to the standing, actually this is where the standing committee amendment will take place. I'm going to ask that that be read in now.
Senate File 55, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 11, line 17, delete.
Senator Rothfuss?
Madam Chairman, I move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 55, ask the body's favorable consideration. There were some concerns with a couple of numbers that are used here, one of which is what you see as the application fee on page 11, that $500 as an application fee was so low as to be trivial for this industry, and $5,000 application fee was suggested as where you begin to be serious in the industry. So we just took that recommendation, and that's the first part of the amendment. I'll get to the second part of the amendment in a moment as I continue to walk through. Again, these are processes for the approval, for what the waivers would do, the nature of the sandbox agreement, and all of the other provisions are what we see on page 12. Additional provisions that are required by the commissioner go from 12 to 13, but I want to call out Romanet 7, bottom of 13, because this too was a critical provision by the insurance commissioner, that if an application seeks a waiver of specific statutes or rules, ones that they were very concerned about, being possible threats to NAIC accreditation, that the commissioner would coordinate the terms of the waiver with the NAIC prior to approving the waiver, to once again ensure that there's no threat to that. Other processes of the application process in 14 and 15. Page 15 would provide for an insurance sandbox account where they take any of the funds that come in to provide the necessary funds for administration. Details of operating the sandbox on page 16 and 17. Again, these are similar to the operation of the sandboxes that we've passed in the past. On 18 and 19, further discussion of operation of the sandbox and legal action. On page 21 is a discussion of the revocation or suspension of the insurance sandbox authorization. Nothing about this is a property right. It can be revoked immediately at the discretion of the insurance commissioner. Nothing ever has to be approved by the insurance commissioner. If they do not think this is in the public's interest, if they think there's unnecessary risk, they are to deny it. And so there's a lot of protections and provisions in place. Moving on to page 23, you have the extension of the sandbox period where an application can be made to extend for an additional 12 months if there's justification. Page 24 contemplates any issues that may come up, as well as an enforcement of a bond. And you'll see that the bond provision was actually the second part of the amendment on page 15. I skipped over it, my apologies. Looking at page 15, there's a required minimum bond of $10,000 in the bill as written. The amendment would raise that to a $100,000 minimum bond, but you'll see the language directs that the commissioner shall require a bond not less than $10,000, and now it would be $100,000, and shall be commensurate with the risk profile of the innovative insurance product or service and can be updated with time. Madam Chairman, on to page 25, one other point of consideration is that there is an appropriation of $500,000 internal to this legislation, but it's an internal appropriation of funds that they have, and they work entirely as a self-funded agency. And so this was just their request that an internal allowance for this project be used. It would never touch the general fund. It would simply be through their standard insurance fees, and they wanted an expressive allowance for up to that amount if they needed to hire experts. They don't necessarily anticipate using that much money. They'd like to be able to potentially have the use of it. That would mean somebody's coming in. So with that, Madam Chairman, that's the legislation. There would be the drafting of rules and regulations as well, and the split effective date to allow for those rules and regulations. The act would not be effective until January 1st, 2023 to give time for that drafting. With that, we're on the Standing Committee Amendment number 1, which once again changes the application fee from $500 to $5,000 and the minimum bonding amount from $10,000 to $100,000. So on the Standing Committee Amendment, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any, or I'd call for the question.
We are on the amendment. Discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor of Senator Rothfuss's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate File 55, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We're back on the bill. Senator Rothfuss.
Madam Chairman, that's the legislation. Again, I kind of went high level. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them either through Committee of the Whole or in whatever detail is desired offline.
Discussion on the bill. We'll do Senator Guru, then Senator Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a quick question. I've been trying to follow along this, and I'll admit I don't understand it real well, but one of the questions that's come up, and the good bringer talked a lot about protections, a lot of protections that the insurance commissioner has with the rules and regulations. But I have been asked a question about, are we giving, by virtue of this legislation, are we giving some sort of unfair advantage from a competitive business sense to this new industry over current industry's insurance requirements? And if so, how long are we doing it? Is there just a period, and is it just during this period while we're promulgating these rules, or as that comes through? Just to get a sense of that. I don't know if you can't answer it now, you can get back to me, but it's a question that's come up, so I just wanted to lay it out there. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Gru. Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, my question is, what risks are we running in this? Specifically, are any of these projects likely to be covered by one of the guarantee funds? There is a property and casualty guarantee fund I suspect might get involved. And are we running any risks if something goes wrong, because it is experimental, in incurring liability at the guarantee fund, and then after that, the consumers, because that's where the guarantee fund gets its money, has to pay off.
Let's let Senator Office have a go. Senator Office.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Both good questions. The first with regard to any undue business advantage. There's a lot more consumer protection and scrutiny that goes on in this. So it's trying out a business model, but at the same time with an awful lot of oversight and a small scaling. You wouldn't be very effective if you just continued to operate within your sandbox. You certainly wouldn't be able to develop much of a market, because the intent is to have it highly limited on a small scale with massive consumer protection bonding that you're going to need to pay for behind you. You have to put in place a lot of warnings that indicate that this product is sandboxed, it's innovative. You'll see these on page 12 and 13, that there's a potential risk to consumers and the methods that would be used to protect it, the business plan. A lot of oversight. So the idea, in some ways, is to identify ways where there could be an advantage for a new innovative product. That's the whole point of the sandbox, right? Identify ways to do things better. But while they're in the sandbox for the 2-year period of time, it would be unlikely that they would have any advantage realistically, because there are so many limitations on them while they're in the sandbox, and that's the intent. Try it out, see if it works, get you out of the sandbox, and make sure that statute is appropriately administered when you're out of the sandbox. And again, I'll point out that the original request was based on reinsurance. We don't have particularly good statutes for reinsurance. So the request was, well, could we amend a few things and do things differently? The example in particular being, we have a lot of statutes about consumer protection when you're a front-facing insurance company, which is what legislature and the statutes anticipate. Reinsurance companies don't talk to consumers. So all of these standards that tell them how to talk to consumers and all the compliance they have to do is a complete waste of their time and money. What they have to do is really focus on appropriate liquidity and investments. So that's the kind of concept that really brought this about, except now it probably won't be needed for that specific application. To the good tall senator from Natrona County, again, a good question about what is being put at risk. If in any way you see the state being at risk by any loopholes in here, please point them out and let us know, because we bent over backwards to ensure that we weren't at risk. So the sandbox has its own bonds. The insurance commissioner is supposed to figure out what risk is possible, isolate that risk, make sure that it's to the sandbox and not to the state or any other funds. If you see anywhere how we didn't accomplish that, let's amend to it and let's get that accomplished, because as with our previous sandbox legislation, the intent is to keep all risk in the sandbox and not to allow the state or any other entity to absorb that risk. Madam Chairman, thank you.
Further discussion on the bill? Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on and for the bill, good senators, this work I think is demonstrative of the work of the Select Committee on Blockchain, which really looks at how to be innovative with providing that balance of safe parameters for the people of Wyoming. So I just urge your support of this bill.
Further discussion on the bill? Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 55, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Senate File 55 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate Joint Resolution 2.
Senate Joint Resolution 2, Senior Citizen Property Tax Relief Constitutional Amendment, sponsored by Senator Dockstader. A joint resolution to amend the Wyoming Constitution by providing for a homeowner's property tax exemption for senior citizens. It was referred to Committee Number 3, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Baldwin, Case, James, Pappas, and Schuler. Senator Case, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Case?
Madam Chairwoman, thank you. I move that when a committee of the whole rises to report, that it do so with a due pass recommendation on Senate Joint Resolution number 2, Senior Citizens Property Tax Relief Constitutional Amendment. There is a standing committee amendment. I'd ask that it be read in at this time.
Senate Joint Resolution 2, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 13, after.
Senator Case?
I would move the standing committee amendment, Madam Chairwoman. The committee looked at this bill. We liked this bill a lot, and we added an income qualification to the bill. And for an explanation of everything that I just said and this good little bill, I ask that you call on Senator Dockstader.
Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back in 08, 06, 07, 08, some folks were here, and they remember the struggles we were having with property taxes in. It was somewhat limited to certain areas of the state back then. Places like Sheridan and other places in Jackson and our area, but a lot of attempts were made to find relief, but we couldn't get anything passed. Now, I can't use props, but if I had a prop and you want to study it, and all the tax relief bills were ever considered back in those days, there might be a place to find it, okay? Lots of tax relief bills, should you want to study that. But I'm not going to talk about props. I'm going to talk about what we're trying to do here. And I acknowledge the good work of the Chairman of Revenue for helping me see that this is probably maybe a starting point for all of this. So I bring you Senate Joint Resolution 2, and I'm going to give you just a brief overview. It's a constitutional amendment that exempts 50% of the first $200,000 in fair market value in any residential property. Some of the guidelines: the homeowner or spouse, the homeowner is over 65 years of age. The assessment date: residential property has been the primary residence of the homeowner for at least 10 years. Allows the legislature by law to increase or decrease the amount of fair market value which is exempted from taxation. Requires the legislation to reimburse local governments for lost property tax revenue as a result of this senior citizens exemption. Roughly now, before we ran this income stipulation that the committee saw as appropriate to put on, and that's what we needed. We needed to kind of limit so that we didn't get into these folks with big incomes and giving them relief. The amendment, as you can see, it limits it to the homeowner's family income is less than 50% of the median household income in Wyoming. So that puts some guidelines on it, some safety guidelines. Prior to that, we're looking at perhaps a total estimated exemption of approximately $22 million. That's what it would cost, but that's going to be refigured. I've sent a message over to the good folks who run revenue in the state, have them update it. The good chair has provided some additional information. I'll pass that out for second reading just for your perusal, but that's what this is. I think we've got the guidelines in place to get something started. Constitutional amendment for property tax relief in the bill, just briefly, will be done in the next election on page 1, 11 through 12. Page 2, it starts in 2023. It ties in the primary residence. This can't be a second home situation. The age requirements are there on page 2. Median income, that was inserted with the amendment on line 16, page 2. Page 3, local governments get their reimbursement. We take care of them. And if there's, and then again, the reimbursement to the local governments. But we included that amendment also on page 3, along about line 21 there. And then again, we take care of the reimbursements as we close out the bill on page 4. So folks, there'll be some adjustments with those figures as we get those back, with the limiting the median income, making sure it's for those who could really use the help. We've got to step into this, folks, somewhere. It's not going to be pretty for the next few years. I don't think any of it's going away. I think you're going to see this little challenge, this big challenge. You're going to see this. We're going to share the pain with you across the state, folks. It's coming to your area soon. And you get these letters from folks saying, what is going on? For example, I've got one from our assessor out west, raising land values in one particular area, one community, at about 140 to 150%. This is what we're dealing with post-COVID. Can't explain it, but it's happened. And I don't think it's going away. We've got to find some solutions. It went away back in '08 with the recession. I don't think it's going away this time. I'd ask for your favorable support.
With that explanation, we are on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Senator Hicks?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I understand the concept of bringing in the homeowner's family income, but how expansive is family income? Is that family living in the home, or is that all of your children and your grandchildren? And then how would we go about documenting what the family income is versus the homeowner's income? And so that would be, you know, specific to the amendment, Madam Chairman. If we could just get a little bit of discussion on that. I'm curious as to how that would work. How expansive is family income? And then how do you document that?
Senator Dockstader?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're calling it primary residence this time. If you think, the good senator thinks we need more specifics to actually what the family as a whole is making, we can do that. But we're basing it on primary residence, Madam Chair.
Discussion on the amendment, Senator Case?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. So household income is actually specified. So there's a definition for that. We calculate it at the Department of Economic Analysis. I don't know all the exceptions, but it's the combined income of the husband and wife or the couple living in the house. I don't think it includes other siblings or anything that might be involved in that house or children, but we can get that exact definition for you. In the meantime, we do have a handout that we'd be able to provide, which lists the 2021 median household income estimates provided by the Wyoming Economic Analysis Division. And this is what we would be using. Wyoming's family income in 2021, the median household income estimate was $69,300. So 50% of that would be what we're talking about here for the household income as defined by the Bureau of Economic Analysis.
Further discussion on the amendment, Senator Hicks?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, and again, I'm just asking questions because I want to understand this. I understand that we have an issue out there and it's a real issue that we need to grapple with, but specific to, again, to income. And so is it just the previous year's income? And the reason I ask that question is extremely important. For anybody that derives a livelihood, say off the minerals industry or agriculture, it's not unusual, particularly in agriculture, raising commodities, to actually lose money one year. And on a scenario like that,
Senator Hicks, could you cozy up to your microphone a little bit?
yeah, under a scenario like that, Madam Chairman, you'd qualify for the tax relief associated with the previous year's income. The next year, you may have an income with a net profit of millions of dollars. And that happens all the time. Most typically, most people involved in agriculture, whether it's ranching or farming, make money on about 5 or 6 years out of 10, and they lose money out of 4 out of 10. So how would that work under this scenario? Is it just the previous year's income? Is it a 5-year average? These are things I think that are all questions that we have to ask as to the implications of that. But if we could get some explanation on that. And I think that, Madam Chairman, I think if we look what just happened with the pandemic, and I wonder if the same thing wouldn't happen with many of our small businesses across the state. If you just use their income from 2020, many of them are 65 or older that own these businesses. They may qualify if we just use 1 year. And then next year with all the money that's come into the economy, the helicopter money that seems to be just dropping out of the sky, they may actually make a lot of money. So again, is it, we just talking 1 year, previous year, rolling 5-year average? What are we talking here?
Senator Case?
Madam Chairwoman, thank you very much. We're just talking about the income for the previous year. Present your income to qualify. Now, we have another program in law, the rebate program we funded with the budget amendment. That one has an asset test as well. Basically a test where you exclude the home and they can't have a bunch of savings and things like that. This one does not have that. You could add that. You could add any criteria. The bill came to us without an income criteria. We, the committee, felt that it was appropriate to add an income criteria. And if you think about that, you can see why. You know, there are a lot of people that are just fine paying these taxes, but we want to get the people that have been in their homes for 10 years, they're 65 years of age or older, and they don't have much income. So yes, that could change. You might qualify for the exemption for next year, and then for some reason you have a higher household income. Maybe you sold the Exxon stock, I don't know. Sorry about the proper name. And so your income goes up. No, you wouldn't qualify. But you have money to pay your taxes then too. So it's a rough match. There might be better ways. I suspect we don't want to average income because you know, my income 5 years ago, if I'm a senior, might not be very relevant for what I'm trying to live on and pay these property taxes now. An asset test, I think, is just probably getting too complicated, but that could be added, and that could be whether you have money in the bank, you could add that, and you could use the framework that's in our existing law for the property tax relief program. But Madam Chairwoman, I think this is kind of a good balance of simplicity, effectiveness, but we're certainly open to other ideas.
Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Scott.
Yeah, I think it does cover the amendment. Following on the previous question, and it's a very real circumstance that you hit in agriculture and a number of the others where the income varies radically because the market varies radically. The fact whether you've got a drought or not varies radically. There's things that can change your income, but also depending on how you define the income, the federal depreciation laws on the federal income tax are such, you can vary your income widely just by changing the accounting of it. And so you've got to deal with some of those complications. Further question that you encounter in the agricultural situation is what do you do? Some families, the residence will be owned by the individual that's living there. That's fairly straightforward. In some families, the residence will be the main residence of the ranch. It almost has to be something that would sell with the ranch or not, and is therefore owned by a family LLC or corporation or partnership owned by the business entity. How do you deal with that where you've got very similarly situated individuals?
Senators, my apologies for interrupting debate, but I've been asked to make the following announcement. Under Joint Rule 14-1, amendment requests for third reading on the budget bill need to be into LSO by 5 p.m. today, and I think it's 4:35, looking at my watch. My apologies. We're on the amendment. Further discussion? President Dockstader.
As we're apologizing, I think I jumped into the bill while the amendment, but it all fits together. I think you needed to see the big picture. We can work on that situation. I don't know that we want to get into an average. I think we got the 50% in there to make sure that we're not setting this up for people that are extremely wealthy. We're setting it up for those who are just being hit hard with these property taxes. As far as the ag question goes, I can track that down for you, good Chairman Scott, and see if I can get a more proper answer with that. We're going to, I'm going to get these made up and pass it around before second, but it all fits together, and the amendment fits into the bill itself. So I'm asking, I guess, for call for the question on the amendment and then any other questions on the bill, and we'll get some information ready to disperse.
Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Case's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate Joint Resolution Number 2, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We're back on the resolution. Further discussion? Senator Case?
And Madam Chairwoman, just in response to the question of how the house is owned, the language of the resolution says, exempt from taxation if the homeowner or the spouse of the homeowner is 65 years of age or older as of the assessment date, and the homeowner has owned and occupied the residential real property as the homeowner's primary residence for 10 years. So it is certainly conceivable that you could be the owner and own it through a corporation, something, but you have to be the owner. That person has to be the owner. And so with regard to agricultural property, remember this, the only part that would be affected would be the residence. It doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the taxes, which of course are based on productivity. But I just make those observations. So thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman.
We are on the bill. Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, something I asked the Senate to think about between now and second or third reading. It strikes me that the language of the constitutional amendment, and you can see it in the debate we just had, reads very much like ordinary legislation. Ordinary legislation, if we get something wrong and we find out after some experience it needs to be changed, we can fix that relatively readily. A constitutional amendment is much more difficult to change. And is too much of the Wyoming Constitution is, frankly, reads like ordinary legislation, and it gets us in trouble from time to time. My question is there a way we can sensibly reduce this to a general principle that will allow us then to legislate these details that may need to be changed with experience? Or if we do that, are we opening it too much to changes that'll get us in financial trouble? That's the reason you're putting sideboards in the Constitution, which may prove to be too effective or ineffective, need to be changed with legislation. But if you don't put the sideboards in, will it get us in trouble? Is there a way to make this read something that's more appropriate to go in a Constitution that is a general principle or two that we can rely on and then legislate these other details? I can't say that I've found one, but Madam Chairman, it's a real concern I have with this constitutional amendment, and I think we ought to think long and hard on it between now and third reading to see if we can't make it more what a constitutional provision ought to be, which was a basic principle.
Senator Dockstader, then Senator Guru. Or Senator Guru.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. I agree with my good friend from Bates Creek on wanting to get this right, and it is important when you're talking about constitutional amendments. And I think the discussion's been great. And as someone who's thought about this for 6 years and trying to figure out, I walked into LSO literally the first day I was here and said, I need to get a property tax break for my senior citizens in my county. And I laid out a couple ideas and they told me, not constitutional, can't be done, can't be done. And I'm sure that book in there might even have a couple that I looked at. And as far as it goes, yes, we can try to build the mousetrap, and believe me, I know them, and I'm telling on my own constituents, and a little political suicide here, but what the hey. But they'll figure out a way around it. There'll be some that will. They're good at it. That's why they're rich. So, you know, don't try to get around all of it, because they'll figure a way. I can say I know a lot of them. They're pretty smart. So that we can't get our eye off the ball. The ball is there are a lot of folks in this state who are hurting. They're just like a lot of my rancher friends. They're land rich and they are cash poor. They're living on a fixed income that was meant for another time and another value in another place, a place that doesn't exist for a lot of us anymore. And like I say, it's a problem that's coming your way, maybe in various degrees. Our taxes, property taxes, are still low compared to virtually the rest of the union. There's no doubt about that. But for a certain amount of folks, like I say, on those fixed incomes, it's just going up and up and up. And they're making decisions that would just curl your hair as far as between, you know, should I get the medication, or I've got to make this payment. I've got to make, you know, do I turn down the temperature because I can't, I'm trying to figure out a way because I know that tax payment's out there. We have to try. I look forward to this discussion. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Further discussion? We're on the bill. Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and I know that there's no magic bullet here, but the age of 65, when we know that lifespans are much longer than they were when they started Social Security at the age of 64, I think, like many of you that are near my age, or if you're younger than my age, your retirement age probably won't be somewhere until you're 66 or 67 or even later. And I know there's no magic number, but it sure seems that we would probably tie it back to some rational basis. But that's just a discussion. You know, I'd like to hear the thoughts of the sponsor, or maybe the good chairman from Revenue Committee, about looking at something like that as a potential amendment also.
We are on the bill. Senator Perkins.
Madam Chairman, I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes I think we just really make this stuff too complicated. And I mean, I look at Section 12 of the Constitution, and it simply says it provides for exemption from taxation, and it goes through a list and says these properties are exempt from taxation. So I don't understand why it's just not, why it can't be as simple as that the legislature may allow exemption from taxation for the benefit of the poor, or the benefit of, I mean, it doesn't have to be this long, complicated thing that then allows the legislature to come back and when lifespans change, or when economic circumstances change, it gives the body, the legislature, the people's representatives, the ability to adjust according to the times and the needs. I mean, I just give that some thought. It's a great idea, but it doesn't need to be this complicated. And it's a broad, enunciated principle that then the people's representatives that are elected and come down here take that and run with it and put that principle into effect in the modern time and in a modern way. And maybe we can just think about that as we go tomorrow. This thing should probably be one sentence long. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Further discussion on the bill. President Dockstader.
That was kind of my, as you recall, when we introduced that, was a little bit of my hesitation as we're dealing with the Constitution, but at the same time, we got to start in there somewhere. Maybe the approach is, and I'll work with the good chairman of education over there, if he's got some time outside of education, we'll look at how we go in there with just some type of a broad statement to pull the word Constitution out. I don't know how you'd amend that, because that's actually, you're in the title now, and that would be a little complicated. Maybe it's just simplifying it and cutting it back to just a basic statement. At this point, I don't think we can change, though, I don't think we can pull out that we've dealt with the Constitution at this point. I'll bring back an amendment. I'll check with a couple of people here on the floor, and we'll bring something back to take a look at, and you can decide whether or not it fits in. I can tell you none of this is going to go away, though, and you're going to hear about it when you go home.
Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Case's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate Joint Resolution 2, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Senate Joint Resolution 2 has passed Committee of the Whole. I think we're almost done, Senators, unless somebody puts some more bills on the board. Just joking. Senate File 50. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 50. Will the reading clerk please read in the Senate file?
Senate File 50, Government Waste, Fraud, Abuse, and Whistleblower Protection, an act relating to the administration of government, sponsored by Senator James, was referred to Committee Number 7, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, Case, Driscoll, Nethercott, and Scott. Senator Scott, Act Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Scott?
Madam Chairman, I move when the Committee of the Whole rise and report it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 50 do pass. There was a standing committee amendment. I'm going to ask that be read in at this time, and then I'm going to yield to the sponsor of the bill to explain both the bill and the standing committee amendment, and ask him to move the standing committee amendment when it's appropriate.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator James, and let's make sure your microphone's working. Perfect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll go ahead and move that standing committee amendment now.
Senate File 50, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 9 after line 10, insert.
It's been read in. Let's move it one more time just for our protocol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move standing committee amendment number 1 to Senate File 50, and I ask for your favorable vote. So all this amendment does is gives this bill a sunset date. I added the sunset date of starting July 1, 2022 to July 1, 2025. We'll give this a 3-year trial period. If it's working out, we can extend it or get rid of the sunset. If not, then we can get rid of it.
Senator James, how about we go through the bill, and then once we get to the end, we'll vote on the amendment. Please proceed in explaining the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate File 50, and I ask for your favorable consideration. So we've seen this bill before. Third year in a row, third time's a charm. Hopefully, we can get this passed. So this adds a system in place for government employees as well as citizens to report waste, fraud, and or abuse within the government. I sent you all an email of examples of situations that have occurred within Wyoming, going from Medicaid, you have county clerks, county treasurers, and this is just a system put in place to make sure that we can prevent this from happening. I also have another example that happened down in UNA County, where you have a board member that embezzled over $1 million from a senior citizen. It's a senior citizen board of directors, so it was just a senior citizen center. So this person embezzled over $1 million from that senior citizen center. So this is here to prevent all that and to kind of be a preventative action in those cases. We also have other cases where concerning, like I said, Medicaid and all kinds of things. And I've been hearing about this for quite a while now since I've been bringing this, but I ask for your favorable consideration.
All righty, we are on the amendment. I think Senator James explained the bill. Is there discussion on the amendment which would provide for a sunset? Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman,
Senator Rothfuss, hold on one second. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
No worries.
If senators have conversations they could take elsewhere, that'd be great. Thank you. Senator Rothfuss?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, on for the Standing Committee amendment, I think this is the perfect approach to the bill, honestly, and gets me on board with the bill. Giving it a 3-year trial, I think dispels concerns that I have about what the utility might be. And so I welcome the amendment. Hope the body will as well.
Discussion on the amendment, seeing none. All those in favor of Senator James's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with all those in favor of Senator Scott's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 50, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We are back on the bill. Is there discussion on the bill? Senator James, nothing? Senator Kolb and then Senator Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a few things I'd like to get, I guess, maybe further explanation. I received those examples, and one of them's near a green river where I'm at. And I just wondered how this would, I don't know if it would stop this, or what's the intent of those examples? What the bringer of the bill, if they could explain that. And then a definition of how you envision the word abuse. Just how are you thinking that's going to fit in here, and how would that work? Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Let's rack up some more questions. Senator Scott, did you still have a question? Okay. Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, I have a comment on the bill, not a question.
Okay. Senator James.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So these definitions were addressed the first time I brought this bill, and they were amended. I had originally got them from the Office of Inspector General federal website, and from there we had amended them. I didn't change those at all. So how it would address it is, for instance, that particular situation in our neck of the woods, this would allow people, if they happen to see something, they would have a way to say something. And that's the intent of this, is to be a preventative measure on these type of situations, to prevent these massive losses in funds, to prevent these crimes against our constituents. So that's where that came from.
Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, we heard this in committee. We had a fair discussion, some testimony on it. And I wanted to say I voted for the bill for two reasons. One, we had some testimony that these fraud and abuse lines elsewhere, one of the things they've done is help citizens who they see something and they think it's fraudulent. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know where to go. We get a fraud abuse hotline and put it on the various websites and publicize it. This gives a citizen who thinks he's seen a problem a place to go and a way to get there. And a significant percentage of them will prove to be unfounded. But Madam Chairman, one of the ones I've picked up on quite a bit is complaints about fraud in the Medicaid program. And the specific fraud that I've heard complained of is people getting eligible for Medicaid who should not be, who have plenty of resources, plenty of money, and shouldn't qualify. And I've heard it from people who are pretty knowledgeable, including some people that have to do billing for various medical offices. It's been very difficult to get anything done about that. It's in the agency's interest not to find the fraud that's there. If they do, the feds recapture money, the program diminishes in size, and the agency has an interest in simply not seeing that stuff. I think having a fraud line that ties to an auditing agency may get something done about that. But it's also an example, the manual, we once looked in trying to codify Medicaid eligibility and couldn't get it done because the eligibility was so complicated that it would have taken up a vast amount of the green books, and we were afraid we would miss something and inadvertently change the rules quite a bit. It is extraordinarily complicated, so a significant percentage of those reports are going to be unfounded. They're going to look at it and say, no, they were they've hit this category or that category of the eligibility. It's amazing how complicated that one is. So that illustrates, I think, both some of the problems and some of the advantages of this. We do have a problem in that and a number of our other programs, I think, Madam Chairman, where it will be some advantage for us to get these reports and having them come in for a 3-year period, seeing if we can do something about them, I think is a worthwhile exercise. I think we'll learn quite a bit about it. And I do think it will reduce the degree of frustration that a number of our citizens have when they see things that they think are fraudulent with regard to some of the programs the state government has.
Let's go with Senator McCune, then Senator James.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On and for the bill. We're using terms and we're getting hung up on them, but we're using regularly government-defined terms in there. And then we report this to the Department of Audit, and it's their job to determine whether it falls into fraud or abuse or whatever. So I think the bill is well written, and I would encourage everyone in here to vote for it. Thank you.
Senator James.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had forgotten to address my fellow senator from Sweetwater regarding abuse. So like the senator with the face, it'll be up to the Department of Audit to address and determine whether or not this is worth investigating using the terms that are common terms within the government. So that's how that'll be addressed. And so, I mean, it'll be up to them whether or not they pursue an abuse or waste or a fraud case. And so, thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, on for the bill. And Madam Chairman, we've seen this bill, as mentioned, for 3 years, and it's seen a lot of improvement over the 3 years, in my view, to the point where, once again, as was the case in the beginning, I don't think there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse going on. The concern that I've typically had is that we were creating a bureaucratic entity that was going to spend a lot of time trying to find something that wasn't there, and it would end up being itself the best example of waste, and hopefully not the fraud and abuse part. And I think that's where it started 3 years ago. This has been slimmed down. It's got a 3-year timeline. The language is cleaner. It doesn't create a whole new entity, but provides some obligations to the appropriate department at this point in time. I think again, the work on the definitions, I believe a couple of years ago that a couple of our good senators participated in, made that clear. And it doesn't look like it's now ripe for abuse or in and of itself wasteful. So at this point in time, I think this is worth the endeavor. And I'd encourage the body to join me in supporting it.
Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Scott's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with favor, all those in favor of Senator Scott's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 50, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Senate File 50 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 106.
Senate File 106, Wyoming Stable Token Act, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss, an act relating to trade and commerce. It was referred to Committee Number 9, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Anderson, Cooper, Rothfuss, and Wasserberger. Excused Senator Beitman. Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the committee bill, or the Senate file. What is your pleasure, Senator Anderson?
Madam Chairman, I move when the committee of the whole rise to report, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 106 do pass. And to hear this, to explain this good little bill is Senator Rothfuss.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I bring Senate File 106, the Wyoming Stable Token Act. Madam Chairman, this legislation is first of its kind in the country, and the potential for innovation here ties in like a puzzle piece to a lot of the other work that we've been doing on the blockchain select committee with digital assets, cryptocurrency, blockchain. And this is one of those puzzle pieces where it's challenging to have confidence at this point in time with volatility surrounding many cryptocurrencies to incorporate those cryptocurrencies into sort of standard business practices, standard government practices in a way that an institution like a government, like a state, can have confidence and utilize those funds without putting funds at risk. So the solution that's on the market right now, at least attempting towards that, instead of a standard cryptocurrency, is what's called a stable coin. A stable coin is a virtual currency or cryptocurrency that is pegged to something, oftentimes the US dollar, so that its value is maintained, and instead of fluctuating, it stays at $1. But even those, there's some question marks because there's not necessarily certainty or surety behind those dollars, and for a government to engage with it would be a bit of a challenge. Madam Chairman, there's also a lot of interest as we're looking at work within blockchain and cryptocurrency and the work that we've done in recent years with DAOs and speedy banks in having smart contract transactions, which are then going to be algorithmically implemented using a cryptocurrency that folks can have confidence in. So the interest here is to provide a form of not a new currency, but what's called a token, which is similar in the way that it behaves on a blockchain, but a token that's representative of a US dollar. And therein is the key. This stable token, the Wyoming stable token, would effectively be floated by the state of Wyoming and would represent United States dollars held in trust by the treasurer and then invested in treasury bills and only treasury bills, so that the transactions that are nearly instantaneous and facilitated by smart contract can take place on a blockchain with US dollars instead of with various cryptocurrencies, and therefore those funds would not be at risk. So the concept here is, once again, trying to promote that innovation, be a leader in this area, but to facilitate the business in the marketplace that can't be accomplished right now because the tools just aren't out there, Madam Chairman. So walking through the bill and specifically how we do this, and I realize that we're sensitive to time, so once again, I'll try and stay at a bit of a high level, but there's a lot new here, so I'll be happy to answer questions. Madam Chairman, going on to page 3, one of the key concepts here is what a Wyoming stable token is. Page 3, lines 15. A Wyoming stable token is a virtual currency representative of and redeemable for a United States dollar held in trust by the state of Wyoming as provided by statute below. That's the central concept of this bill. That's what this bill does. And then the state of Wyoming, if somebody wanted these stable tokens issued, would hand us US dollars. We would hold those in trust, invest them in treasury bills, and then if they came back to the state of Wyoming and asked for the dollars back, we would effectively extinguish the token, hand them the dollars back, and everyone would be happy. The upside, though, and what's in it for the state of Wyoming, which is always a question we should be asking, is for this service, the state of Wyoming will collect the revenue off of the tokens held in trust, that are invested in T-bills. In the future, the chief financial officer expects 1 or 2% on these T-bills. And right now, I'll note that the global market cap on stable coins, so similar on the marketplace right now, is $180 billion. That market cap is expected to grow into the trillions of dollars over the next few years. If we were responsible for a small portion of that, even $10 billion, which again is already a small portion of the market cap, at 1%, it would be $100 million of annual revenue just to facilitate this operation and to encourage transactions in the space within the state of Wyoming. And if that were to occur, 50% of those funds in revenue would go into the Common School Permanent Land Fund, and 50% would go into the Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund, Madam Chairman. This would be carried out, you can see on the bottom of page 3, by the treasurer that has some flexibility in developing this, working with financial institutions, retaining professional services, and figuring out the best way to proceed with the development as part of the process. On page 6, the Wyoming Stable Token Account is created. That's where these tokens would be held in reserve. 6B indicates that not only would it be a 100% reserve, but the first 2% of excess as revenue is generated would also be held in that reserve account to provide a little bit of cushion on the off chance that has never happened in the history of the country that treasury bills go negative, to give an opportunity for time for liquidity for the token holders. Under no circumstances is the state of Wyoming at risk. It's explicitly not at risk. The full faith and credit of the state is not available. And under any circumstance where the value of that trust were to fall below 100%, you could only cash in for the proportionate value. So there's no risk, there's no liability. That's called out over and over again. I've discussed how redemption would occur, but I will note that the redemption would not be instantaneous on behalf of the state. It would tend to be in bulk redemption. And the reason for that is if it's invested in these treasuries, there would be some time required to receive the funds for the treasury, which would then be processed and returned. Limitations on liability are found on page 8, as I mentioned. Page 9 and 10 provide some conforming amendments, as well as that the oversight of the committee shall be provided by the Investment Funds Committee, which we've been using for investment oversight. And then there's a directive on page 10 to establish this stable token on behalf of Wyoming, not later than December 31st, 2022. But importantly, the B paragraph on page 10 indicates that if the state treasurer determines that issuing a Wyoming stable token is not feasible by December 31st, 2022, due to incompatible federal or state law, the state treasurer shall not issue a Wyoming stable token and shall report back basically for further direction, Madam Chairman, to ensure that if there are problems, if problems arise, we push the pause button, and that's fine. Madam Chairman, you've got a split effective date so that rules can be generated as appropriate, and then some are effective immediate. Madam Chairman, that's the legislation. There's a lot of interest in this legislation. It's very exciting, and I hope that you will join me in supporting it. If things go well with it, if it's successful, it could be tremendously successful, but it does not put the state at risk. So if the market turns out not to be interested in it, that's fine. Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Rothfuss, discussion on the bill? We'll go with Senator Kolb, then Senator Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I really hate to ask a question. However, if I was to buy a Wyoming stable token as a purchaser, frankly, what's in it for me? I think that's what I'd like to know. Thank you.
Let's get a few more questions or comments. Senator Scott?
Madam Chairman, he asked one of the questions I have, but I do have another one. Article 1, Section 10, United States Constitution. No state shall enter in a treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. That's the section of the Constitution essentially saying the federal government has a monopoly on creating money. And I don't understand how this bill does not violate that section. So I'd like to hear about that. And then I'd like to think, what are the risks we can get into? And that, in part, hinges on the answer to the question of what's in it for anybody that buys them. And suppose you get a situation where there is a rush of redemptions for one reason or another, big inflation going on, something like that, and the redemptions requests come in faster than our treasury bills mature. Are we potentially hitting a big risk there where we could get a run on them, and that would put the state at some risk? So, Madam Chairman, this one makes me very nervous, and I think those questions are fundamental.
Senator Rothfuss? Do you want to respond, or anyone else? Senator Rothfuss?
There's one more. And there's not. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, these are precisely the types of questions that we discussed and considered, and they're very good questions. The what's in it for me is really the biggest key of this. And for many people right now, there might not be anything in it for you. You might not want a Wyoming stable token. It depends on what types of transactions you're interested in doing. For folks that are working in blockchain and doing transactions in digital assets, there's going to be a lot in it for them. And the reason for that is that the value of a transaction on the blockchain is, first of all, that it's going to be a true instantaneous transaction or nearly instantaneous. Instantaneous isn't quite right, but for practical purposes, it's close. Whereas transactions in US dollars, even though they seem fast to us, when you're transferring large amounts of money, there is nothing fast about that transaction. It really takes often a day to close. Securities take multiple days to close. These large financial transactions don't really close for quite a long period of time, and it's a slow and arduous process. Whether this is one Wyoming stable token or 10 million Wyoming stable tokens, that transaction time is going to be the closure time for the block, which for the blocks that would be, blockchains that would be used would be very short. So that's one advantage, is global transactions that are nearly instantaneous in US dollars, because this is a digital representation of the US dollar as opposed to some new type of cryptocurrency. That's one thing that's in it. Another gets back to a lot of what we've been working on with smart contracts, DAOs, and other features of the blockchain that have really led to people being interested in it. Automation. The blockchain automation can't work with US dollars. I mean, you can't jam a $20 bill into the blockchain and have it say, oh, thank you very much, now we're going to execute a contract, regrettably. But everyone wants to be able to do that, because that's where the value is. People want to be working in US dollars, Madam Chairman. They want to be working with fiat currencies as well as cryptocurrencies. You can't do that right now. This would provide that opportunity, because this is a token that represents a US dollar that would be capable of engaging in smart contracts, working with DAOs. And so rather than having the volatility that you might have with the cryptocurrency, you could operate your DAO transactions or smart contract transactions using effectively US dollars that are represented by this token. getting to the good tall senator's questions about minting and the U.S. Constitution 110. There is a legitimate concern there, but the structure of this token as opposed to a coin is based on that concern. And it's the idea that this is not a new currency. This is the US dollar represented digitally. You transact this way every day. When you are paying with credit card, are you paying with the real $20 bill? No, you're paying with a digital representation of that $20 bill. Nobody has called anybody out for that digital representation and said, oh, you can't mint currency because it's a digital representation. This is a newer, smarter, better technological digital representation of the US dollar. It's not minting something new. It's not a new currency. And for that reason, it's not a violation. And getting back to the risk concept of a rush on redemption, the language on the redemption is very specifically structured such that the state is never obligated for any more than the proportionate value of the fund. The price changes in the treasury bills, and remember, these are only bills, so they're short term. These are not 3-year treasuries. These are multi-week treasuries as decided by the treasurer and the investment concept. Rules and regulations will determine what your window is for redeeming the token directly, and that will set effectively the timeline. So honestly, an awful lot of conversation, Madam Chairman, went into with the Chief Investment Officer that exact provision to ensure that the state of Wyoming was in no way at risk, and honestly to ensure that those token holders were also at infinitesimal risk. All of the risk is with them, but the risk is very, very, very small. Again, U.S. Treasuries have never gone negative. T-bills have never gone negative. The only way to have a risk in this situation is for those treasuries to go negative. There's a 2% buffer, so they would have to go negative enough to consume the 2% fast enough that you couldn't cash out the treasury bill. That was the discussion that we had with the Chief Investment Officer, and there's a tremendous amount of surety there. Madam Chairman, thank you. Be happy to answer any more questions.
We're on the bill. Senator Kolb.
Thank you. I'll take another stab at this. Apparently, I have a failure to communicate. If I give you $1 and buy a coin, inflation happens, or the dollar gets devalued. When I cash in said token in 5 years from now, it's worth half as much as it is currently. Is that the outcome of that? So are we really saying this is just a vehicle to handle blockchain transactions in a way of digitizing our current currency? Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Senator Rothfuss.
Briefly on that, yes, that's accurate. There's nothing about inflation here. This is not a security. If we were to protect against inflation, there's no question we would be either getting into security or coin. That would be problematic one way or another. This is $1, a digital representation of $1, and regrettably, inflation will affect it in exactly the same way as $1 since it's just a digital representation of that dollar. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're on the bill. Further discussion, Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, as I understand it, we think that the reason that a business might want to do this is able to transact business faster, transmit the dollars faster. And Madam Chairman, I can see why a legitimate business under some circumstances is like to see that as a major advantage. My question is, would not also somebody whose claim to have the tokens is fraudulent, or who has the tokens all right, but derived them in a fraudulent means and wants to get the money laundered and away from U.S. and U.S. authorities in a hurry, would they not also find this a convenience And are we going to get ourselves in trouble over that sort of thing?
Senator Rothfuss or Senator Nether? No. Senator Rothfuss.
Madam Chairman, this would be a very bad vehicle for laundering money or doing anything that's trackable. Blockchain transactions on public blockchains, that's the thing about a blockchain is every single transaction of that token in the entire history of the token is a public record. You know who has the money when, where it came from, where it went, with date stamps that are immutable. I would not encourage anyone to try to sneakily use a public blockchain, a transparent blockchain, to do anything like that because it goes right back to them. And in fact, the way that the exchanges in the United States work, you still have KYC, AML, Know Your Customer, Anti-Money Laundering of the Bank Secrecy Act, requirements to get your fiat currency into place in the beginning so your name is known. Then you start having financial transactions where literally every transaction is public. That's actually a concern of this, honestly. There are a lot of folks that are concerned about the privacy side, but this is a transparent public token. It would be very bad for money laundering. It would be very fast, but it wouldn't do a good job of it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To round it out, and just to summarize, I think for my good co-sponsor, and to address the questions in the room, for the essential facts for your consideration. There is no risk to the state of Wyoming. Only the potential for gain, of which those monies come into the state's coffers. The bill has been reviewed by the department that would be involved with that investment, and they feel very confident about that ability to earn revenue for the state of Wyoming with no risk. No concern for criminal activity, as my good co-sponsor indicated, due to the nature of the blockchain, which is why it's so appealable. So with that, good senators, this is a pure opportunity to earn revenue for the state with no risk. And I urge your aye vote.
Are you ready for the question? Senator Scott?
Madam Chairman, I have one comment and one question. My comment is, I never yet heard a get-rich-quick scheme, which I think this is, that had no risk. Those things, Madam Chairman, I think simply do not exist. My question is, you've got this blockchain, big electronic thing maintained. What are the environmental consequences of the power that is electric power that is needed to maintain this blockchain? You're going to emit a fair amount of carbon dioxide that people are worried about. You're going to have a significant cost in all that. How does all that play into this?
Any other questions? Senator Rothfuss.
Madam Chairman, there has been a lot written about the environmental implications of certain blockchains, specifically Bitcoin and Ethereum, where you have what's called proof of work, which requires a lot of energy to do the job. That's what the good tall senator is referring to. That's not the current and next generation of how it works. There's an alternative technology called proof of stake. Ethereum is moving to Ethereum 2. That's the most common.
Senator Rothfuss, let's be cautious on using proper names.
Those are okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Those particular, it's very much like saying the US dollar versus the yen. It would be the equivalent, and I think that's well within our rules of order. If anybody objects to that, Madam Chairman, or if you do, please let me know. Ethereum 2, which Ethereum is transitioning to, will probably be the largest smart contract cryptocurrency / blockchain. And others are also on this proof of stake system. I can go into more detail at another time when we have more time on how that works, but the key take home is it is a tiny fraction of the power and nobody's complaining about the amount of power it will use or the environmental implications of it.
Senator Nethercott.
Fired power, so it's going to be just fine. And if it's not, they're working on the new system, like my good co-sponsor said, to make it a much greener system. I don't think that's a fundamental concern for this particular bill, and think it's a very minor issue in the scheme of things. Again, hopefully, we get to use coal-fired power to make this, but again, I don't think that that's a legitimate concern here.
Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of Senate File 106, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. No. Senate File 106 is passed Committee of the Whole. Senator Driscoll.
Madam Chairman, I move the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion's passed. Woohoo.
Reading clerk, please read in the report.
Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole, having had under considerations bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 85, do pass. Senate File 78, do pass amended. Senate File 84, do pass amended. Senate File 76, do pass amended. Senate File 92, do pass amended. Senate File 62, do pass amended. Senate File 11, do pass. Senate File 77, do pass amended. Senate File 80, do pass amended. Senate File 82, do pass amended. Senate File 81, do pass. Senate File 41, do pass. Senate File 86, do pass amended. Senate File 100, do pass amended. Senate File 56, do pass. Senate File 55, do pass amended. Joint Resolution 2, do pass amended. Senate File 50, do pass amended. Senate File 106, do pass. Senator Ellis, Chairwoman.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Oh, that's right. Senator Ellis, go ahead.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay. Committee of the Whole report passes. Okay, we're going to go back to some introductions, and let's do the standing committee reports if you got them. I can wait a minute and do introductions if it's better.
February 24, 2022. Mr. President, your Committee Number 3, Revenue, to whom is referred House Bill 21, repealing exemption for one-way pagers, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Baldwin, Case, James, Pappas, and Schuler. Senator Case, Chairman. February 24, 2022, Mr. President, your Committee Number 12, Rules and Procedures, to whom is referred Senate File 70, Revisers Bill. Respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Dockstader, Driscoll, Grew, Hicks, and Rothfuss. Senator Dockstader, Chairman. February 24, 2022, Mr. President, your Committee Number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 43, engrossed. Trophy game, big game, and wild bison's license allocations. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Ellis, Guru, Landon, Salazar, and Schuler. Senator Ellis, Chairman.
All right, let's do introductions. House Bill 86, first reading of the House bill.
House Bill 86, Genetic Data Privacy Amendment, sponsored by the Blockchain Committee, an act relating to genetic data privacy. Passed the House, ayes 59, excused 1.
Thank you. House Bill 86 is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Joint Resolution 1, first reading of the resolution.
House Joint Resolution 1, Supreme Court Justices and District Judges Retirement, sponsored by the Judiciary Committee. Passed the House, ayes 54, noes 5, excused 1.
House Joint Resolution 1 is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Joint Resolution Number 5, first reading of the resolution.
House Joint Resolution 5, Permanent Mineral Trust Fund, Investment and Distribution, sponsored by the Capital Financing Committee. Passed the House, ayes 44, noes 14, excused 2.
House Joint Resolution Number 5, assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Joint Resolution Number 6, first reading of the resolution.
House Joint Resolution 6, Common School Account, Investments and Distribution, sponsored by the Capital Financing Committee. Passed the House, ayes 45, noes 14, excused 1.
House Joint Resolution 6, assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 6, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 6, ARPA Funds for Water and Wastewater Projects, sponsored by the Select Water Committee. Passed the House, ayes 52, noes 7, excused 1.
House Bill 6, referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 65, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 65, County Tax Protest Filing Date, sponsored by Representative Bear. Passed the House, ayes 59, excused 1.
House Bill 65, assigned to Committee Number 3, Revenue. House Bill 2, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 2, Disposition of Water Rights, sponsored by the Select Water Committee. Passed the House, ayes 59, excused 1.
House Bill 2, assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 52, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 52, Timeline to Prepare and Process Absentee Ballots, sponsored by the Corporations Committee. Passed the House, ayes 46, noes 13, excused 1.
House Bill 52, assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 87, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 87, Insurance Investment Amendments, sponsored by the Blockchain Committee. Passed the House, ayes 34, noes 25, excused 1.
House Bill 87, assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 49, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 49, Election Reporting Requirements, sponsored by the Corporations Committee. Passed the House, ayes 45, noes 14, excused 1.
House Bill 49, assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. Thank you. All right, House Bill 16, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 16, Military Assistance Trust Fund Authorized Uses, sponsored by the Transportation Committee. Passed the House, ayes 39, noes 20, excused 1.
House Bill 16, referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 17, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 17, Veterans Facilities Surrounded by Grazing, sponsored by the Transportation Committee. Passed the House, ayes 58, no 1, excused 1.
House Bill 17, referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 9, or excuse me, House Bill 47, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 47, Local Impact Assistance Payments, sponsored by the Minerals Committee. Passed the House, ayes 39, noes 20, excused 1.
House Bill 47, assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. Concludes our introductions. Okay, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pay attention. I move we stand adjourned until 8:30 a.m. 8:30, Friday, February 25th. And a little luck, there's quite a few bills. We're going to add some more. So tomorrow's still going to be a pretty good day. We're going to do a cutoff on those bills. So when it comes time, budget time, our guys will get together. If we haven't got to them, whatever's left on the bottom is going away. So be aware of that. We're going to set a pretty hard time to start the budget, and we'll start into the budget amendments. So that's where we'll be at. We'll start 8:30 in the morning and work our way through.
Thank you. Announcements. Let's go with you, Senator Scott.
Mr. President, your committee number 4, Education, will meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. in Capitol Room W10 as per usual. House Bill 30, School Finance, Increasing Cash Reserves, and if time permits, which I suspect it won't, House Bill 29, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments. Mr. President, I do hope we'll be able to get through House Bill 30 tomorrow and report it out.
Let's move across the room, Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 10 will not meet tomorrow morning at 8:30 as scheduled. Rather, we will be hearing House Bill 33 next week during committee meetings, likely Monday.
Thank you. Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, your Minerals Committee will meet tomorrow upon noon recess, Capitol Room W004 and online to hear House Bill 46, Partnership Challenge Loan Program Amendments, House Bill 45, Mine Reclamation Bonding, Voluntary Assigned Trust, House Bill 0009, Economic Development Programs, Tribal Inclusion, and House Bill 70, Digital Identity Protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 5, Agriculture, will meet today at, let's say, 5:50. Yep, 5:50 in Capitol Room W110 and online to consider Senate File 93, legislative voting records, legislative website, Senate File 96, collection of election ballots, prohibition, Senate File 69, property tax limits.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Folks, there is a resolution of support for Riley McCollum. He's our soldier that we lost over in Afghanistan. We're going to hopefully bring his parents over here and team up with the House and kind of an informal program to honor them. And so if you'd like to sign that, that's over on the table here. And we'll get you more details as we bring all that together next week. So with that, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Senate